Chapter 603 Soul Alternative. It was for this reason that they had become less and less worried about Bei Chen's situation. In the beginning, they also thought that the sovereign would come back soon, and they had been very good and polite to Bei Chen. Later, they felt that this possibility was getting smaller and smaller, and the two gradually let go of their worries and even ignored it. Still, they kept Bei Chen's position in their minds. If Bei Chen had really refused to marry Baili Hongzhuang, then she and Xuanyuan wouldn't have dared to force him to agree. Therefore, at that time, when Bei Chen agreed to the marriage, even she and Xuanyuan were surprised. Now it had come to this. Bei Chen did not agree to the marriage because of the pressure from the two of them, but also because he wanted to do it. Huan's eyes showed a faint emotion. Originally, Baili Hongzhuang was his fiancée. It was because he had not recognized the treasure. Baili Hongzhuang now was so dazzling. On the contrary, Bei Chen had a really unique vision for being able to understand Baili Hongzhuang's magnificence. This had become the biggest regret of his life. Mother Empress, Bei Chen has come back now. I wonder if he will find us for trouble. On Huan's face appeared a touch of worry. It was difficult to think of Bei Chen like this. It would be more difficult to face him. Jiang Jinying's face was also very ugly. I don't know, but these things are no longer in our hand. We can only move along with Bei Chen's decisions. Looking at Jiang Jinying's helpless look, Xuan's heart also became solemn. He now felt that his identity was not noble enough. Even if he had gone to the college, his identity as the crown prince still received a lot of compliments. Although he did not become a student of the special enrollment class, his limelight was not weak. There were still many people in the college who admired him. He always felt that Baili Hongzhuang would regret marrying Bei Chen, but he did not expect that it was he who was the frog at the bottom of the well. His self-righteous identity and Bei Chen's were not comparable at all. He was afraid that Bei Chen had always regarded him as a joke. I'm going to hold a dinner party and invite Bei Chen and Baili Hongzhuang to participate, and finally we can find a way to clear this matter. Jiang Jinying's eyes flashed with wisdom. Right now, everything was controlled by Bei Chen. The only thing they can do is try to clear up the past things. She believed that Bei Chen also knew that they were only doing this because some people had commanded from the shadows. They would only try to push this responsibility to that person. Bei Chen should understand the truth. At least, the price they would pay would not be too great. Xuan nodded slightly. I'm going to apologize to Bei Chen. Now, Xuan would naturally not be stupid enough to think of him as just a crippled prince. Although he felt very uncomfortable at having to face Bei Chen, he also knew that Bei Chen was not a narrow-minded person. If he took the lead to apologize and was sincere enough, he believed that Bei Chen would not hold too much against him. In fact, this was the only way left. If Bei Chen does not accept it, then he would pay for what he had done before. You can think so. I am relieved, Jiang Jining breathed a sigh of relief. Her most pressing worry was that Xuan would not be willing to bend. Then their situation would be even more difficult. Empress Mother, you can rest assured I understand. Xuan looked firm. This was his sole alternative. Chapter 604 Attitude. Xuan, about Li Yuyue, you should be prepared for what is to be done. Jiang Jining thought about Xuan's lifelong matter after they had thought of how they would deal with Bei Chen. Since Xuan was the crown prince, it was not a difficult thing to choose a good person as his princess. However, she didn't know why. Every time Xuan chose a fiancé, the chosen princess would have some problem. It was needless to explain. Baili Hongzhuang things were naturally known. Baili Yuyue had been disfigured and had even died in the royal hunting game, and they had finally chosen the daughter of the prime minister, Li Yuyue. There were a lot of freckles on her face. Although she had never seen Li Yuyue since, from the prime minister's attitude, the number of freckles was definitely not small. This was the chosen princess, and in the future, she would be the mother of the country. If her face was full of freckles, wouldn't it be too shameful when the news spread? How could she still face the world proudly? However, if they were to break off the engagement and select someone else, she was afraid that Xuanyuan Huan would become a joke. The crown princess's position would be like a child's play. It had been changed so many times before the marriage itself. Anyone who heard this would find it ridiculous. At the thought of this, Zhiqing was really worried. And she also knew that had she not let Xuanyuan Huan arbitrarily lift the marriage contract with Baili Hongzhuang, then there would be no such things. Hearing this, Xuanyuan Huan also frowned, and there was a hint of intolerance in his eyes. Now, he too felt annoyed about this marriage and did not even want to choose a crown princess. Mother Empress, your son has now put all his heart into cultivation. I am not keen on this kind of matter. It is better to put it aside for the time being. Xuanyuan Huan said. How can that be? Zhiqing immediately objected. You are a prince. It will be good for you to pick a princess early. Only in this way, I and your father will think that you are truly an adult. But I'm cultivating in the Tsanglan College. Most of the time, I am not in the imperial city. Xuanyuan Huan argued. Zhiqing waved her hand, and her attitude was very determined. You will be the emperor in the future. Letting you go to college to cultivate your strength is just to prove your strength. You will not become a cultivator in the future, but become the emperor of Fengbo. You might meet some promising cultivators in college. You can pay attention to them. If you meet the right ones, you can recruit them back. Most of the cultivators in college are very promising. You are now in college, and many people know you. This will be good for your future. It is therefore these reasons that I had you attend the Tsanglan College. However, even if your cultivation is good, that is not your path. Do you understand? Zhiqing's graceful face was full of seriousness and warning. She does not want Xuanyuan Huan to forget his status as the crown prince and become a member of those ordinary cultivators. Xuanyuan Huan's expression changed a bit. Now that he had been in the college for a while, he had indeed been affected by the emotions of the cultivators. Now, after listening to Zhiqing's reminder, he discovered that he had really gone astray. Empress Mother, your child knows. Xuanyuan Huan nodded. Zhiqing glanced at Xuanyuan Huan with appreciation. Now after so many things, Xuanyuan Huan had become more mature than before, which had made her very satisfied. In this case, according to how things are going, it is better to invite that Li girl when the dinner is held. It will not be late after we understand Chen true intentions. Chapter 605, Seeing Again. An old friend Baili Hongzhuang and Chen live in the Chen prince's manor, and the days were pleasant and happy as they passed by. Compared to their previous situation when they had been in the prince's manor, the two of them were now in a different mood. The two of them had the right to take a holiday, and sometimes went to the streets to go shopping. In the imperial city, everyone knew that the relationship between Prince Chen and his princess was really good. They had become the object of envy of many young men and women. They only hoped that in the future, they too would be like the prince and princess, and their husband or wife could love them for years to come. Baili Hongzhuang went to the 10,000 medicine shop. Jiupin was also very happy to see her, and the two people talked. Speaking of, the first friend that Baili Hongzhuang had made after crossing over was Jiupin. Jiupin had always treated her as a sister and given her a lot of help. Therefore, Baili Hongzhuang was also very grateful to Jiupin. Hongzhuang, how are you doing in that college? Jiupin's face was full of excitement and joy. I haven't seen you for such a long time, and you have become even more beautiful. You overpraise me. Baili Hongzhuang had a smile, and there was a little bit of joy on her face. I met many like-minded friends in school. That's good. Jiupin nodded. Prince Chen was also with you, right? I heard that the prince's legs have been cured. Did you heal it? The curve of Baili Hongzhuang's lips became a bit wider. Big brother is right. He, DBC, is very good to me. He is now a student with me at the college. Oh, Jiupin was slightly surprised for a moment. He hadn't heard this news, but after seeing the faint happiness in Baili Hongzhuang's eyes, he also revealed a happy smile. That is good. In the beginning, I was worried that you would be wronged if you married Prince Chen. Now it seems that you are really far-sighted and chose a good husband. Listening to Ji Wenbin's words, Baili Hongzhuang felt a little moved. In the beginning, she and Ji Wenbin had just met each other. Ji Wenbin had been helping her, and was even worried she would be wronged in her marriage. In this big city, the first one who treated her sincerely was Ji Wenbin. Yes, your godly medicine square is also developing very well under the care of Du Tianxiang and Dong Siro. Now, the people in the imperial city will go to the square if they have any discomfort. Baili Hongzhuang smiled. They both have a talent for medicine and treatment. It's not surprising that they have made this achievement. Du Tianxiang and Dong Siro were both simple and kind, and she liked them very much, so she had left them the book about medicine and also her experience. She believed that the medical skills of the two would have made no small amount of improvement. In the beginning, it was only a means for her to make a living, but since the godly medicine square could grow to such an extent, she was very satisfied. However, the most important thing for her now was to improve her cultivation. She would not be able to take care of the godly medicine square. Du Tianxiang and Dong Siro were good choices. I understand that your ambition is cultivation. No matter what you do, Big Brother will support you. Ji Wenbin smiled heartily. In the beginning, he had felt sorry for the fact that he was skilled but not a physician. Now, after seeing Baili Hongzhuang's any aspects of talent, he did not think those previous words. After a long time talking with Ji Wenbin, Baili Hongzhuang went to the godly medicine square. Sure enough, as Ji Wenbin had said, the entrance was packed with people. Chapter 606 Back again. Godly Medicine Square. Dong Siro and Du Tianxiang were very happy to Baili Hongzhuang. If they had not been taken in by Baili Hongzhuang, they would have nowhere to go. Ah, you are back. Dong Siro put down what she was doing and quickly walked to before Baili Hongzhuang. It was difficult to hide the color of joy on her pretty face. Baili Hongzhuang nodded and smiled. The college is on holidays, so I came back to take a look. You have taken care of Godly Medicine Square very well. N is the shop that you left behind, Du Tianxiang, and I don't dare to neglect. Dong Siro smiled, rejoicing. For Baili Hongzhuang, her heart was filled with extreme admiration. A woman like Baili Hongzhuang who had achieved what she had was awesome. Du Tianxiang also came over. His character had always been introverted, and he did not know what to say after seeing Baili Hongzhuang, but the smile on his face revealed his feelings. Ah, Wangfei, Godly Medicine Square has had good income these days. I and Du Tianxiang have taken care of the finances, just waiting for you to come back. Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand. I don't have time to take care of Godly Medicine Square now. The two of you have been taking care of it this while the income is naturally yours. When these words were said, Dong Siro and Du Tianxiang shook their heads again and again. How can that be? We're just helping you. All this is yours. The two of you are very talented in the field of medicine. After all, this godly mighty square was built by me. I will also be assured if I hand it over to you that you will take care of it. I have given it to you now. Baili Hongzhuang's eyes were gentle. She knew Dong Siro and Du Tianxiang's characters. However, she had not done anything in the Godly Medicine Square all this while. It was better to give them this medicine shop. In this way, it would be in good condition. After listening to Baili Hongzhuang's meaning for her decision, Du Tianxiang quickly said, You could take us in. We are very grateful. Not only that, but you also taught us medical skills. This is really a good fortune that must have been cultivated by our ancestors. However, this Godly Medicine Square is your shop. I and Dong Siro only want to help you. You can't directly hand it over to us. He had received enough kindness from Chen Wangfei. He just wanted to repay Chen Wangfei's kindness by taking care of Godly Medicine Square. Dong Siro on the side nodded again and again. Since you don't have the time to take care of Godly Medicine Square, we will help you. We don't need other things. Seeing that Du Tianxiang and Dong Siro's attitude was so firm, Baili Hongzhuang nodded after some hesitation. She also understood the reluctance of the two people. If that is the case, then we will do it as you said. However, the earnings from the Godly Medicine Square will belong to you. It's just that I will be Godly Medicine Square's owner. How? The exquisite and beautiful face was warm and full of touching emotions, and Baili Hongzhuang's voice was also warm and gentle, but extremely firm. If you disagree, then it will be as I said before. Dong Si Ro and Du Tianxiang looked at each other and knew that as the matter stood, they had no other choice. Thank you, Wang Fei, the two of them said together. Baili Hongzhuang just waved her hand and smiled. This is what you two earned by yourself. What are you thanking me for? I just met with Big Brother previously. How about getting together at a restaurant in the evening? In Dong Si Ro and Du Tianxiang smiled brightly, the excitement on their faces difficult to hide. Chapter 607 3 Foodies. The night was cool like water, a cool breeze blowing gently. Baili Hongzhuang returned to the Chen manor, pouring a cup of tea to drink. Previously, she had had dinner with Jiupin, Ben, and the others. She only felt that her mood was very good. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also very happily touching their round belly. They really liked this kind of joyful atmosphere, where they could have a happy meal. We ate a lot today. It was really delicious too. This is life, Xiao He said excitedly. Xiao Bai agreed with a nod. This kind of gathering is really good. The food in Tay's restaurant was also good. Baili Hongzhuang listened to the conversation of the two little guys, and in her heart, she couldn't help but laugh. These two little fluffs have been trapped in the chaos ring for so many years. They must have had no other problem except their inability to eat. Baishir looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai in disgust. These two acted like they had been starved. Although he too felt it was delicious, but while eating he was much better than those two guys. Baishir was on the table, and his two small claws held a demonic beast core, which was much more delicious to him. Thinking of this, Baishir directly bit into it, a crisp sound ringing. Looking at this ensemble of 3 foodies, Baili Hongzhuang couldn't help but feel fortunate that she had a lot of means to make money. Otherwise, these 3 beasts would be enough to make her poor. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were not easy to raise, and Baishir's demonic beast cores were worth a lot. After studying inscriptions for a period of time in the stone room of the Chaos Ring, she found that the old man in the stone room had given her relatively simple inscriptions. Complicated or high-level ones were not given to her, and, like alchemy, she wouldn't be able to refine further with her current cultivation, needing to master even the basics. The same was true for inscriptions. Judging from the grace of the old man, the inscriptions he had mastered were definitely not just simple inscriptions. There were also many stone rooms in the Chaos Ring. She had reason to think that there may be more advanced inscriptions in other stone rooms. However, it was not enough wanting to learn it with her current cultivation. These ordinary inscriptions were enough for her to study for a while. She was not in a hurry. These things could be done slowly, and there were many things more urgent. Just then, a knock sounded on the door. "Wifey, have you come back?" Xiao He and Xiao, by hearing this voice, immediately shrank their bodies and jumped to Baili Hongzhuang's head. After all that eating, they were a little bigger than before. "Come in." Hearing Baili Hongzhuang's voice, Chen immediately opened the door. Upon seeing Baili Hongzhuang, the handsome and perfect face was also filled with a smile. "Wifey, were you happy going out with him this time?" Chen asked. Originally, he had planned to with his wifey, but thinking that he and Jiupin were not familiar with each other if he were to go, he was afraid that they would be uncomfortable. If he didn't go, they could also enjoy more. Baili Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. "I was very happy. I don't have many friends in this imperial city. They're the few I do have." Chen's deep eyes reflected Baili Hongzhuang's smile. He knew that his wife had always been a person who kept others' favors in her heart. Since she had visited them, Jiupin and the other two certainly had some weight in her heart. News came from the palace today. They will be hosting a dinner in the Imperial Garden tomorrow. They specially invited me to come with wifey. What do you think, wifey? Chapter 608 Calculating all old accounts. Baili Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes slightly narrowed, the corner of her lips curving in an enchanting smile. "Since it is an invitation from the palace, we naturally have to go take a look." They had come back this time to see a good show. Bei Chen's identity had become very different now. She thought that the emperor must be having a headache over this. Going to the palace tomorrow, they can also see what attitude the imperial family had. Now, the two of them had come back to collect debts. In the past, those who had humiliated them should take a good look at them now. If they still didn't know the right thing to do, they could only take the matters in their own hands. After all, they had to calculate all the old accounts of those who had been so proud. As for the general's family, Baili Hongzhuang was also prepared to settle this matter. In the future, she was not willing to have any involvement with that general, and the so-called young miss of general's family title no longer belonged to her, because she had never been their young miss, and there was no connection between her and Baili Jintao. Looking at Baili Hongzhuang's expression, Bei Chen revealed a smile. Tomorrow we will see a good show. If wifey sees someone she doesn't like, just teach them a lesson. He knew that over the years, Baili Hongzhuang had suffered a lot of grievances in the imperial city. Compared to the humiliation he had endured in the past 3 years, Baili Hongzhuang had suffered a lot more than him. Even now, some of her grievances had not been accounted, and he only hoped that Baili Hongzhuang would vent all her feelings and be happy in the future. Baili Hongzhuang's cinnabar lips curved slightly, and through her smiling expression appeared a trace of craftiness and ridicule. This time will be my first time being a fox exploiting a tiger's might to scold and coerce. My wifey has always been an existence that can't be easily provoked. Bei Chen smiled softly, his eyes shining with pampering indulgence. After deciding over this matter, Baili Hongzhuang also felt satisfied and happy. Bei Chen, from the herbs I wrote for you before, how many did you find? This had always been a matter of great concern to her. Although Bei Chen had stood up, the problem with his cursed constitution hadn't been completely resolved. They must find all the herbs in order to transfer Bei Chen's cursed constitution to Mandate of Heaven Constitution. As a result, Bei Chen's constitution would undergo earth-shaking changes, and his speed of cultivation would accelerate greatly. Tianxiang has a lot of medicinal herbs. I have searched for those herbs in the sect. Since I still could not find the medicinal herbs, the rareness of those herbs can be seen. Hearing these words, Baili Hongzhuang sighed slightly. These herbs were indeed not simple. There were still many herbs that were as priceless as before. In fact, it was already much easier to find the herbs with Bei Chen's identity. Which 4 herbs are still remaining? Baili Hongzhuang asked. Amethyst Dragon Emperor Ginseng, Cold Flame Tears, Blood Essence Phantom Fruit, and 9-grade Violet Zoysia Pungence. Bei Chen's voice was a bit dull. He had already inquired. These 4 were extremely rare herbs. From what he had inquired, they rarely appeared. Even if he had sent someone to go out and search for it, there was still no news. Hearing Bei Chen's answer, Baili Hongzhuang didn't feel it was unexpected. These 4 kinds of herbs were all treasures. Their efficacy was very good, and their growth conditions were extremely harsh. It was not without reason that they were so rare. Chapter 609, made by Heaven and arranged by Earth. Baili Hongzhuang had only come across those herbs once before, but had taken a long time and huge human and financial resources to gather them. I will pay more attention to news about these 4 kinds of herbs and strive to get them as soon as possible. There was a bright and firm light in her eyes. These 4 herbs were very important for Bei Chen's future. If they came across it, they couldn't miss it. I have sent people to other sects to ask for traces of these 4 herbs, but these 4 herbs are really extremely rare. Until now, there has been no news. Bei Chen was not surprised by this. Tianxiang was a large sect. Any of the herbs that could be found elsewhere could be found in Tianxiang too. However, this time was obviously different. It wouldn't be easy to get it even from other places. We will find them. Baili Hongzhuang smiled. She believed that the heavens would favor them. Bei Chen nodded, and there was no sign of depression or loss in his expression. After so many years, he had already trained his mind to be firm. He would not give up even in the last moment. At night, the imperial palace was already very lively. The palace eunuchs were constantly moving around and through the place, Delicately prepared snacks, delicious dishes, and sweet and intoxicating drinks were placed on the table one by one, and the rich fragrance filled the entire hall. When Baili Hongzhuang and Chen arrived, the invited officials had already arrived. The two of them had arrived late. However, the emperor and empress had not arrived yet. As always was the custom, before the imperial family arrived, at this time, the civil and military officials could also converse with each other. Once the emperor arrived, even if it was a feast with rules not too rigid, everyone could still not avoid the feeling of being restrained. With the arrival of Chen and Baili Hongzhuang, the original hustle and bustle of the main hall became silent in a moment. The eyes of all the people had unconsciously landed on the Wangye and Wangfei, who had been in limelight recently. Chen still wore a soft golden robe. His aura was imposing. His features were handsome, and his temperament was extraordinary, and even in the imperial palace, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with it. Yuyue looked at Chen. Although she already knew that Chen was no longer a cripple, and she has always known that Chen was extraordinary, but there was still a feeling of amazement when she saw him. This kind of temperament, this kind of aura, let alone Prince Xuanyuan Huan, even the Emperor Xuanyuan could not compare. Such a man was really the dream of every young woman. Next to him was Baili Hongzhuang, dressed in a white dress. She was like a willow, her waist thin, her eyebrows perfect, and exquisite beauty. Baili Hongzhuang had always been a beauty, but Yuyue only knew that Baili Hongzhuang was a little more beautiful than before. It seemed that her temperament had changed. The Chen Wangye and Wangfei are really a pair, made by heaven and arranged by the earth. This old man has lived for so long and has never seen a pair more suited. The Chen Wangye and Wangfei are really a pair of dragon and phoenix. Now standing together, it is like they have been reborn. The official smiled and turned to look at Li Chengqian, who was next to him. Prime Minister, Li really contributed to this marriage. Hearing this, Li Chengqian only felt extraordinarily ironic. He did not have a plan to make Baili Hongzhuang and Chen Wangye happy. No matter what his thoughts were, now he could only smile and laugh as if he were happy. It is true, this old man also didn't think that the two of them were so suitable. Chapter 610 to Deflate and Destroy Baili Haoxian. Liyu's hands had already tightened into fists under her sleeve. Baili Hongzhuang had indeed changed and achieved fortune. In the past, she had always regarded Baili Yuyue as her opponent. She had never put Baili Hongzhuang in her eyes. She hadn't expected Baili Hongzhuang to reach the point she had today. Wifey, let's sit first. Chen took Baili Hongzhuang's hands without any scruples and walked to the upper seat and sat down. His beautiful voice was gentle and soft, his gestures revealing concern as everyone watched. Baili Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her distinct beauty peerless, her face overflowing with a clear smile like moving water. Baili Zhantao's gaze had frozen on Baili Hongzhuang ever since she arrived. As he stopped in the middle of what he was doing, and as he looked at his daughter again, he had a very strange feeling. Nowadays, the picture of the general's residence was bleak. After Baili Yuyue and Su Wanjing had successively died in the big general residence, only the two people, Baili Zhantao and Baili Haoxian, remained. Those former lively pictures had already gone forever, and Baili Zhantao had aged a lot in a short period. Father, ever since that Baili Hongzhuang unexpectedly came back, she hasn't come to pay obeisance to you. Baili Haoxian's eyes were overflowing with malicious intent. The reason why his mother and older sister had died was definitely not without Baili Hongzhuang's influence. The humiliation of their family was at present unexpectedly so unbridled. Seeing her still daring to put on airs, it was truly repulsive. Baili Zhantao's expression changed somewhat, unaware why. With his previous experience and the matters afterward, he unexpectedly felt that Baili Hongzhuang had become an existence too high to reach. Don't mind it. Allow her to go. Baili Zhantao shook his head. Over the past years, he as a father had always been harsh to Baili Hongzhuang in every way possible. never showing consideration to her at all times. Baili Hongzhuang's current attitude to him was not at all strange. Presumable Baili Hongzhuang had long since hated him. These days he had understood quite many things. Subsequently, his attitude also changed. Listening to Baili Zhuntao, Baili Haoxian's eyes flashed with inconceivable emotions. He simply couldn't believe what he had heard just now. His father had unexpectedly let off Baili Hongzhuang? How could that be? However, Baili Zhuntao's expression as he drank wine alone proved that what he heard was true. Damn it, he still wanted to demand payback and exact revenge for his older sister. What qualification did that cheap slut have to act this arrogant? In a flash, Baili Haoxian stood up, not waiting for Baili Zhuntao's obstruction. He had already left without asking him, walking over to Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang, in any case, you are a part of the general's residence. Now, to yield interests, you don't even recognize your home. Aren't you too excessive? Baili Haoxian took the lead to speak out his dissatisfaction, the words spoken not at all courteous. Even though other people spoke of Baili Hongzhuang's strength now, he dismissed it. Like before, he could forever trample Baili Hongzhuang beneath the soles of his feet like a pitiful wretch. Baili Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes slightly rose, and the corner of her mouth hooked in an alluring smile. So, you came here wanting me to you my younger brother? Baili Haoxian's complexion became stiff. You, this kind of woman, does not have the qualification to be my elder sister. After debate, Chen heard Baili Haoxian's words. His brows gradually wrinkled, and he sat up straight preparing to speak. But Baili Hongzhuang stopped him. It happens that I too have this idea. Since we find each other mutually unpleasant to the eye, why act like close relatives? Baili Hongzhuang smiled gracefully, every movement emitting a noble air, but on the contrary, Baili Haoxian looked like an ordinary clown. Chapter 611. Invincible, Baili Haoxian was somewhat stunned. His black eyes flashed with a doubtful and incomprehensive light. He had not seen her for a few months. Why was it that he felt that Baili Hongzhuang was completely different from the past? He actually felt that there was a feeling of Baili Hongzhuang being invincible. No matter what he said, Baili Hongzhuang did not take note of it. I, naturally, do not wish to be considered your family, but father is here too. You are simply too much. Baili Haoxian proudly raised his chin. He could use the words of shaming the family. So now he was going to tear Baili Hongzhuang's mask apart. General Baili himself has yet to speak. So why are you talking already? Baili Hongzhuang's lips hooked up in a smile, but deep within her phoenix eyes was a cold gleam. She was clear as to what had happened between herself and Baili Haoxian before, but now time had passed, and she did not plan on letting Baili Zhuntao be completely without hope of grandchildren. Although Baili Zhuntao had never treated her well over the years, she did still grow up in the general's household. Baili Haoxian staggered, and his expression changed a few times. He finally managed to squeeze out, I didn't expect you to be so unfilial. Looking at Baili Haoxian, Baili Hongzhuang slowly stood up. Her hands were wrapped around her chest, her eyes looking provocative towards her brother. I'm like this, what can you do? Baili Haoxian was simply too naive. His words had no influence on her at all. Baili Haoxian was stunned. He thought that she would definitely crumble under such an accusation, that Baili Hongzhuang would become scared. He never thought that she would directly admit to it. Admitting it, had she made a mistake? Seeing that his words had absolutely no effect on her. How could he still make trouble? If you have nothing else to say, then you can go, Baili Hongzhuang sneered. I don't like seeing your face very much. Baili Hongzhuang, don't be too much. Baili Haoxian was really angry. The look of Baili Hongzhuang was simply too infuriating. Why? The lips hooked into a smile, and her eyes were showing a mocking gleam. Baili Haoxian, last time I broke your arm, have you still not learned your lesson? Hearing the words of Baili Hongzhuang, Baili Haoxian's face suddenly changed. Because of her, his arm was broken, so he could not even participate in the royal hunting game. Now, Baili Hongzhuang had been studying at the college for so long, He was afraid that her strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. He was not her opponent at all. Scram! Baili Hongzhuang's red lips parted slightly as she spat out the word. In Baili Hongzhuang's eyes, anger was burning, but he had no way to face Baili Hongzhuang at the moment. If you can't beat her, it is the same as simply looking for abuse. Although he was very unwilling, Baili Hongzhuang could only go back to his original position in anger and indignation. He had not expected that after Baili Hongzhuang had gone to college, her means had become even more sophisticated. When Baili Jintao saw the situation of Baili Hongzhuang, he could not help but sigh as he buried his head and continued drinking. "Master, well done." Little Black gave her a thumbs up. This was how you should act towards guys like Baili Hongzhuang. Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. After dinner today, she was also planning on explaining everything to Baili Jintao. If Baili Jintao had been good to her over the years, she would not want to forge it, but the relationship between them had long since disappeared. Chapter 612. Treacherous Yuyue, who was seated far away, had some doubts in her eyes when she saw how Baili Hongzhuang was walking in front of Baili Hongzhuang, after which he left angrily. The distance between them was too far, so she could not hear the conversation between Baili Hongzhuang and Baili Hongzhuang. It was really quite regrettable. Baili Hongzhuang was eating some snacks casually when Yuyue walked slowly toward her. The one who was coming over was not only Yuyue, but also another woman with outstanding looks. The woman was wearing a red dress. She was stunning and charming. The collar of her dress was wide, so that one could see the white neck and the delicate collarbone alongside some faintly exposed white flesh. As the woman was walking, she was both enchanting and charming, and the majority of all men's eyes were attracted to her, their line of sight condensed on the alluring body, as if every step she made was walking on them, making them feel hot and bothered. "Master, this person seems bad." Little Black was alert. This Yuyue had always been an enemy of their master. Now that she had gone towards them, it could only be for the sake of finding her trouble. There was simply no other reason. The lips of Baili Hongzhuang lifted in a playful arc. She was curious to see what trouble Yuyue had to bring. Yuyue took her wine glass and sent a provoking look to Baili Hongzhuang. However, she did not speak to her. Instead, she stood in front of Chen. "Wangye, congratulations on healing your legs. It is really amazing." Yuyue smiled. "I will drink a toast to show my respect." As her voice fell, Yuyue directly drank the wine in her cup. Even so, Chen was sitting with a look of indifference as he looked at her. He remembered the trouble this woman had brought his wife before. He was not a person who easily forgot. Yuyue was not a person who'd really congratulate him, so she had to have some kind of conspiracy. He also wants to see what the woman was going to do. Seeing that Chen did not move, Yuyue's face contained a trace of embarrassment, but it quickly vanished as the smile on her face returned. "Chen Wangye, this is my distant cousin. Her name is Miaoling." Yuyue walked slightly to the side as she allowed Miaoling to go up front. Miaoling has admired the prince for a long time. This is a chance to get to know the prince. Yuyue's expression was smug, and with the move of Miaoling, her smile deepened. She knew that the beauty could fascinate all men. She had noticed that all men present at the banquet had shown interest in Miaoling. Chen was also a man. She believed that he was no exception. Although Baili Hongzhuang and Chen were married, she had to find some ways to destroy Baili Hongzhuang's happiness. The most unpleasant thing for a woman is when her beloved likes another woman. She deliberately found Miaoling just for the sake of giving her to Chen. With her understanding of men, there was no chance that he would refuse such a gift. Now, she would like to see just how Baili Hongzhuang was getting destroyed. When the men present saw that Yuyue was bringing Miaoling in front of Chen, all of their eyes lost their sparkle. Such a fascinating woman. They wanted to bring back with them themselves. But since Yuyue wanted to give her to Chen Wangye, they had no hope. I knew it. This Yuyue is too shameless. After seeing Yuyue's strategy, Little White could not help but snort. Yuyue's means were really too sinister. Chapter 613. Wangye gets a concubine? Baishur was laying in Baili Hongzhuang's embrace, stretching its two claws. It felt like directly ripping Yuyue's head off. Calm down. Don't worry. Baili Hongzhuang stroked Baishur's hair, but a cold gleam was within her eyes. Yuyue's move had successfully ignited her anger. Yuyue looked proudly at Baili Hongzhuang. She just wanted to see the pain of Baili Hongzhuang. Baishur looked at Yuyue with hatred. Although the claws settled down, the heart was still uneasy. The face of Miaoling was filled with happiness. Although she was not actually Yuyue's distant cousin, as Yuyue had said, she did admire Chen Wangye. When Yuyue found her, she had not expected anything from the other person, but now that she knew that it was a Wangye, her heart started to beat rapidly. Such a handsome man, she did not even have the chance to see one previously. Yet now she was about to become a woman of the Wangye? When thinking like this, it was difficult to contain the excitement in the eyes of Miaoling. She was afraid that she did not know how many girls would envy her. Chen Wangye, little Miaoling has admired you for a long time. She spoke the words gently. Her head was slightly lowered and her cheeks were red. The eyes were shining endlessly. Even as a woman, Baili Hongzhuang felt it was attractive. This kind of charm was indeed astounding. However, most of such astounding women can only be reduced to become another person's plaything. Yuyue's smile widened even further. So, how do you feel? Hearing the words, the corner of Chen's lips twitched as he looked at Baili Hongzhuang with a smile. Baili Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders and gestured that it was up to him to decide. Yuyue saw this action of Chen and thought that it meant that Chen wanted to bring Miaoling back to the palace with him. But he was worried about Baili Hongzhuang. Chen Wangfei. Chen Wangye only has you as his Wangfei. The people who serve him is too little. You should not object to this, right? Yuyue's words were a bit ironic. Under the eyes of the public, she did not believe that Baili Hongzhuang would dare to say no. If she did, once it was spread out, the opinion of Baili Hongzhuang would become unfavorable. I have always heard that the feelings between Chen Wangye and Chen Wangfei is very good. Now Yuyue has made such a move, I don't know how Chen Wangfei will respond. Obviously, she will not refuse. Men has 3 wives and 4 concubines is normal. Not to mention Chen Wangye. Isn't he a Wangye? She is so beautiful. No man will refuse, haha. The men present were all laughing. They shared the same feelings about the situation. Baili Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. Since you were worried about Wangye's feelings, just ask Wangye. Yuyue's smile shone brilliantly and felt that Baili Hongzhuang was succumbing. This was the right decision. Chen Wangye. Chen Wangfei has no opinion about it. Then please let my cousin take care of you. Yuyue's smile increased constantly, and she could not help but feel happiness whenever she thought about how Baili Hongzhuang was going to be feeling about this. However, while Yuyue and Miaoling were happy, the voice of Chen suddenly sounded, letting them freeze on the spot. Miss Li, you have a generous heart. I hope that after you marry the crown prince in the future, you can also think of him. Chen's lips rose and released an evil charm, but the eyes were filled with indifference. However, this Wangye does not need your generosity. Chapter 614. Is this kind of woman also worthy? As soon as the words were spoken, Yuyue's expression stiffened and the smug smile on her face turned a bit funny. What do you mean by this? Yuyue asked. Her expression seemed to say that she did not believe what she had heard before. Such a stunning woman like Miaoling. She believed that no man would ever refuse such a gift. How can there be an exception, such as Chen? Miaoling was also shocked. The shame she was feeling was evident on her face, and her expression was ugly. She was rejected by Chen. This Wangye does not need anyone except Chen Wangfei. Chen repeated the words again with a cold face. The cold and firm words did not contain even the slightest temperature, and Chen's face was indifferent. In his heart, there was only space for Baili Hongzhuang. In addition to Baili Hongzhuang, all women were simply rocks to him. If Yuyue likes the crown prince, it is better to help the crown prince. According to what I know, it is very appropriate to marry with your distant cousin. As for this Wangye's house, you don't have to worry about it." When the voice of Dibei Chen fell, everyone present were stunned, their faces mixed with different colors. It was good fortune for Wangye to be sent such a beautiful woman. Who would have thought that Chen Wangye would suddenly turn cold and refuse? However, there was a certain truth in what Chen Wangye said. Li Yuyue is just a noble lady. It is far too much for her to try and force him to agree. Li Yuyue's face was ugly, a sharp contrast to the previous smug expression. "I'm just trying to be generous," Li Yuyue argued. "Miaoling will be able to serve you well." The evil charm in Dibei Chen's smile increased, and his line of sight landed on Miaoling for a moment. He then raised his eyebrows. "Is this kind of woman worthy?" Li Yuyue's face was black and blue. The words of Dibei Chen had clearly refused. She did not understand. Miaoling was stunning from any angle you looked at her. How could she be unworthy in the eyes of Dibei Chen? Miaoling was not worthy. How was Baili Hongzhuang? Miaoling's eyes were red, and she looked at Dibei Chen with anger. She was originally sincere, but now she was despised by Dibei Chen. What was she supposed to do? Li Chengcain was also amazed. He felt that his daughter's idea was good. As long as Miaoling was married to Chen Wangye, she had many opportunities to provoke Baili Hongzhuang and cause strife between her and Dibei Chen. This trick, which would work on any other man, was now directly defeated. Before it had even begun, Dibei Chen had refused directly. "Haha, Dibei Chen is too domineering," Little Black said excitedly. "This is good, I like it." Little White was also happy. For this kind of trick, only such a face-slapping method worked. Baisha was not uncomfortable anymore. It was laying in the arms of Baili Hongzhuang. This abominable woman had lost her face without it needing to even move. "Wangye, this is your honor. How can you say that?" Li Yuyue said. After all, she was the daughter of the prime minister. But Dibei Chen did not give her any face at all. "I have already said too much. If Miss Li can't handle it, then feel free to get away from this Wangye." Dibei Chen lazily picked a grape and placed it in his mouth as he began observing the rest of the banquet, no longer paying attention to Li Yuyue. Li Yuyue's eyes were filled with anger. In the past, she did not see Dibei Chen being this indifferent. Was Baili Hongzhuang really so charming? After Dibei Chen and Baili Hongzhuang got together, they refused the temptation of others. With a slight turn, Li Yuyue could not help but glance at Baili Hongzhuang. The lips of Baili Hongzhuang were curled into a sneer, ridiculing Li Yuyue and her way of trying to provoke her. Is doomed to fail. Baili Hongzhuang, don't be too proud, Li Yuyue said coldly. Baili Hongzhuang smiled slightly at the moment, the smile the same as always. Li Yuyue, you care so much about me. Don't you worry, when the crown prince comes, I will also suggest this to him. Listening to the words of Baili Hongzhuang, Li Yuyue's face turned ugly, and she suddenly felt a bad premonition. Was Baili Hongzhuang going to use the same trick? As soon as she thought of this, Li Yuyue's heart clenched. His Royal Highness had never shown her any affection, so how could she give such an enchanting woman as Miaoling to his Royal Highness? Baili Hongzhuang, don't even think of that. It is impossible. Li Yuyue growled. Baili Hongzhuang shrugged indifferently. It didn't matter if she did it or not. Seeing the behavior of Baili Hongzhuang, Li Yuyue's heart was full of doubts. No matter what, she couldn't let Baili Hongzhuang use the same trick to avenge her. Li Yuyue immediately turned around in an attempt to get Miaoling to leave. She had to have Miaoling away from the palace before the crown prince arrived. However, just at that moment a palace eunuch's voice sounded. The emperor is arriving. The queen is arriving. The crown prince is arriving. The sharp voice made Li Yuyue pause her steps. Her heart could not help but feel a sense of panic, especially when everyone stood up to bow respectfully to the emperor and the others. The emperor, the empress, and the crown prince sat on the main platform right in front of all the people. The emperor and the empress sat in the center. The crown prince was seated slightly to the side. We have seen the emperor, the empress, and his royal highness. Everyone respectfully called out. Xuanyuan Etienne had a warm smile on his face, but the aura he exuded was putting everyone in the hall under pressure. Today we are gathered at a celebration banquet to celebrate the crown prince, Chen Wangye and Chen Wangfei. The Qing dynasty has such good fortune. Xuanyuan Etienne's gaze could not help but fall on Bei Chen. After seeing him again, half a year later, he was shocked. Even though the appearance of Bei Chen had not changed much compared to the past, the sparkle in his eyes were completely different. The confidence and aura that was surrounding him was one that only peerless geniuses could possess. Now when he saw Bei Chen again, he could not help but feel a bit of awe in his heart. You listening to Xuanyuan Etienne? The hearts of the officials were somewhat doubtful. They had thought that this celebration was purely for the sake of His Royal Highness. How could he bring Chen Wangye and Chen Wangfei into it? Although Chen Wangye and Chen Wangfei were now students of the college, their status in the imperial city was not good. One was the waste of the general's household. The other was an abandoned Wangye who was rumored to be an illegitimate child. Why did the emperor suddenly change his attitude today? It is not only Xuanyuan Etienne, but also the crown prince who could not help but look at Bei Chen. In fact, today's banquet was held exclusively for Bei Chen, and Bei Chen was the real main character. Yuyue's eyes landed on Xuanyuan Huan's body, and the black eyes were filled with love. She had been admiring Xuanyuan Huan for a long time, and now she had become the future crown princess, but she had been separated from Xuanyuan Huan for such a long time while he had been at the college. Today she saw Xuanyuan Huan again, and her heart could not help but beat rapidly. After exchanging a look with Zhiqing, Xuanyuan Huan slowly walked from the podium where they were seated towards the front of Baili Hongzhuang and Bei Chen. Yuyue saw Xuanyuan Huan's approach and only thought that perhaps he had seen her before when he arrived. Her heart was beating even more rapidly, and her eyes were filled with love and hope. She would never have thought that Xuanyuan Huan would not look at her at all, and instead looked directly at Bei Chen. Chen Wangye. Bei Chen's eyebrow rose slightly, and he seemed lazy and comfortable as he looked at Xuanyuan Huan in front of him. Since Xuanyuan Huan had an important position, everyone were carefully noticing his actions. However, when they saw that Xuanyuan Huan was standing in front of Bei Chen, but Bei Chen was still sitting and not had any intention of getting up, their faces changed. Chen Wangye is too bold. His Royal Highness has come to him in person. How can he not rise? Even if there's a relationship of students between them when they are at Songlan College, this is not the college, but the royal court. He has to follow the normal etiquette. Xuanyuan Jing had a hint of coldness in his eyes as he said, Bei Chen is really looking for death. This Xuanyuan Jing was the one who, together with Xuanyuan Huan, had pushed Bei Chen down from the third floor, and he ended up hanging in the air. Because of that incident, he lost his face. For a while, he dared not even appear in sight of anyone. Because of this incident, he hated Bei Chen more and more. Do you need something, Your Royal Highness? Bei Chen did not have a good impression of Xuanyuan Huan. The humiliation he had received in Fengbua country was mostly from him. How dare you have such an attitude towards His Royal Highness? Do you not want to live? Yuyue spoke up. The crown prince was to be the monarch in the future. An illegitimate child dared to slight the crown prince like this. It was simply looking for death. Xuanyuan Huan was currently thinking about how to apologize to Bei Chen when Yuyue's sudden words scared him. He carefully observed Bei Chen, and upon seeing that he was not angry because of it, Xuanyuan Huan coldly told Yuyue, Miss Li, this matter has nothing to do with you. Your Royal Highness, Chen Wangye's attitude is a crime. He should be dragged out and beaten with 50 blows. Yuyue's voice was unable to hide the eagerness within. The previous episode had made her very unhappy, and now that Bei Chen was acting so arrogantly, she wanted to take the opportunity to beat him. Baili Hongzhuang's lips curved upwards. It seemed that Xuanyuan Huan had already known the origin of Bei Chen. Now he was here to ask for forgiveness. Yuyue's obstruction at this time was tantamount to finding trouble for him. Your Royal Highness, Crown Prince, She said I should be beaten with 50 blows. Dibei Chen's smile was easy as he ridiculed Li Yuyue and repeated what she had said. What I said is already light. You are making such a big act of rebellion. Li Yuyue stood up, her eyes once again a little smug, who let Dibei Chen refuse to toast, only to be forced to drink as punishment. She was going to make Dibei Chen regret it. Huan could not help but swear. This Li Yuyue was really an idiot. Huan was doing his best to try and please Dibei Chen, but all Li Yuyue was doing was keeping on talking about punishing him. Slap! The crisp slap landed on Li Yuyue's face. His face was full of disgust as Huan shouted, I told you to shut up. Did you not hear it? Everyone present had their jaws dropping in shock. It was simply too strange a response from the Crown Prince. What Li Yuyue said was not bad, but His Royal Highness actually slapped her face in front of everyone. What happened to His Royal Highness? Why is he so polite to Chen Wangye? I don't know. It is really puzzling that he will beat the future Crown Princess for the sake of Chen Wangye. Li Yuyue was beaten by this slap. A burning pain came from her cheek. She could not believe what was happening in front of her eyes. An unspeakable sense of shame began spreading in Li Yuyue's heart. First she was scorned by Dibei Chen, and now she was slapped in the face by His Royal Highness. She had become the object of ridicule. Li Chengqian's face was difficult to look at. He could not understand what Li Yuyue had done to provoke the Crown Prince's anger. Your Highness, how can you do this to me? Li Yuyue's eyes were red and filled with tears. However, Li Yuyue had been hit on the face just before, and now that she was speaking, the veil which she had been wearing quietly fell to the floor. Wow! After seeing the true face of Li Yuyue, everyone were in a daze, their eyes filled with incredulity. They saw that Li Yuyue's white face was covered in dense freckles. The original beauty had been covered, and it was not only because of the mark after the slap. Where was the most beautiful girl in the city? It was simply an ugly woman with freckles. I heard that Miss Li had a lot of freckles on her face, but I did not think it would be very serious. Now that I have seen it, it is indeed very ugly. How can someone look like this and be our crown princess? What if she is seen by the other countries? They will think we have no beautiful women. No wonder Miss Li has always wore a veil since then. This kind of face is really unappetizing. The eyes of everyone fell on Li Yuyue's body. Since way back, everyone had been curious about Li Yuyue's face, but now that they had seen it, they felt shocked. Li Yuyue had not noticed that her veil had fallen before she heard the people talk around her. Her expression was suddenly filled with embarrassment. Her cheeks became red, and it was difficult to endure the shame. Xuan was also stunned. Even though he had suspected that the problem with Li Yuyue's face was serious, he had not thought it would be this serious. Having such a face, he was afraid it was impossible to even eat rice. How was he supposed to accept it? Li Yuyue quickly picked up her veil and put it on her face. Facing the eyes of everyone, she wanted to find a place to sneak into. So, when Miss Li turned out to look like this, she really can't be the crown princess. Zhiqing said after a moment of surprise. That is true. Xuanyuan was sullen as he nodded his head, and his gaze was stern when he glanced at Li Chengqian. Li Chengqian's face changed when he felt the anger of Xuanyuan. In order to avoid his daughter being abandoned as a crown princess, he had always concealed the matter while looking for a cure. He never thought that today it would be completely exposed, and he was worried that the emperor would not easily spare him. Li Yuyue quickly returned to her original seat together with Miolin, and her head was lowered, but she could still feel that everyone's gaze was still focused on her. Xuan did not care where Li Yuyue went and turned back to Dibei Chen. I want to apologize to you for what I did before. Next, Xuan bowed to the emperor. His attitude was completely sincere. I was stupid before. I was truly ignorant. I humiliated you, but I hope that you can forgive me. When everyone saw that Xuan was sincerely apologizing to Dibei Chen, they looked as if they had seen a ghost. It was unbelievable. Xuan was the crown prince. How could he apologize to Chen? Cough. Xuanyuan Jing was directly choking on his tea. His eyes widened. What was happening today? Was the sun rising from the west? While everyone were horrified, they all could not help but look at the emperor and the empress sitting above. However, both of them were indifferent. Obviously, they approved of the actions of Xuanyuan Huan. It was indeed a ghost. Chen looked indifferently at Xuanyuan Huan. He never spoke, but in the silence, Xuanyuan Huan's forehead was oozing cold sweat. If you feel that everything I have done can't be forgiven, then just kill me. I hope that you can forgive my mother and father. They were also forced and were helpless. Baili Hongzhuang was surprised, and her eyes had a strange color. At this point, she thought that at least Xuanyuan Huan was still somewhat manly. When the voice of Xuanyuan Huan fell, the entire hall was silent. Everyone opened their mouths, and one could hear a needle drop to the floor. Anyone who saw this could understand the seriousness of the situation. If there was no reason, Xuanyuan Huan would never do this. When thinking about it carefully, everyone understood that Chen was not the illegitimate son of the emperor. Otherwise, Xuanyuan had no reason to be lowering himself like this. As a result, the identity of Chen could only be terrible. Baili Haoxuan's eyes widened, and the situation changed so fast that he could not accept it at all. It was hard to understand. Is the identity of Chen even more noble than the crown prince? Then, what about Baili Hongzhuang, the wife of Chen? Chen looked at Xuanyuan Huan for a long time. Xuanyuan Huan's whole body was feeling powerless. And then he finally said, "What you did to me, I do not care, but I can't forgive you for what you did to my lady." Xuanyuan Huan's childish actions, he had never really taken them to heart. If he wanted to resist, Xuanyuan Huan would not know how many different ways he could have died. The reason he was enduring these humiliations was to let those people relax their vigilance. Towards Xuanyuan, he also has no feeling. After all, this was not the decision a monarch of a small dynasty could control. He came back this time, not to avenge himself, but to let his lady let go of her bad breath. For more than a decade, Baili Hongzhuang had been sad, and he was extremely distressed. Nowadays, as Baili Hongzhuang's man, he naturally wanted to give her the best. Baili Hongzhuang looked at the excellent man that was in front of her, and she could not help but feel moved deep in her heart. He was so thoughtful and a different kind of talent. He had especially returned to the Fengbua country for the sake of getting her justice. All along, she thought that Chen had returned to Fengbua to cleanse the humiliation he had suffered here, but now it seemed that she was wrong. In the heart of Chen, he had never looked at Xuanyuan Huan's previous humiliation of him. He just ignored the humiliation he had suffered in Fengbua. Xuanyuan Huan was shocked. He had thought that Chen would not let him go. He had never expected that he would say such a thing. Looking across the table, he saw the moving and affectionate feelings in the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang. He suddenly understood why Baili Hongzhuang had picked Chen between the two of them without hesitation. You have to know that at first, Baili Hongzhuang did not know the identity of Chen. Chen was just a disabled Wangye who had nothing at all, while Xuanyuan Huan was a high-rank prince. At this point, he could not compare to Chen, so the only woman who had taken root in his heart had become Chen's. In that instant, everyone's eyes were condensed on Baili Hongzhuang. Even if the emperor, the empress, and the crown prince did not say it, they already understood that Chen was not a simple figure. Obviously, Chen was here to help Baili Hongzhuang. Yuyue was pale like paper. At this moment, she finally understood why His Royal Highness had just taken that attitude towards her. The identity of Chen is above the crown prince. How can this be? An incredible feeling spread in her heart. At that time, the disabled prince that was ridiculed by everyone had now turned to such high. She and her father had together framed, but also pushed Baili Hongzhuang to such a high position. The most important thing was that the Wangye was so fond of Baili Hongzhuang. First he had threatened and said that he only wanted Baili Honyuan. Now he had returned to the Fengbua country just to make her get rid of her bad breath. What kind of doting was this? How awkward. Li Yue's hands and her sleeves were clenched into fists. The nails were deeply embedded in the palm of her hand, drawing blood. All that Baili Hongzhuang has now was all contributed by her. She wanted to let the Baili Hongzhuang fall into the dust. Let everyone trample upon her. Never would she have thought that Baili Hongzhuang was now a pearl that shone brightly. Li Qingqian's face was also extremely ugly. This was a huge, unbelievable contrast. The chicken became a phoenix. This rare phenomenon actually appeared in front of him. Baili Jintao stood up in shock. His face was filled with nothing but shock. He had already regretted it very much. Now that he saw Baili Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen, he simply regretted it so much that he did not even know what to say. He was a real idiot. He could not imagine that if he always treated Baili Hongzhuang well, the current glory would belong to the general estate. With the existence of a son-in-law like Dibei Chen, even if he wanted the entire country of Fengbua, was that really difficult? However, everything that should have belonged to him had been ruined by his own hands. Baili Xuan was also stunned at this moment, and there was only one idea in his mind. How was it possible? Xuanyuan Huan turned around and looked at Baili Hongzhuang. He had indeed made a pair with her for many years. Once upon a time, Baili Hongzhuang had looked at him with eyes of love, but he had hooked up with Baili Yuyue, and even hoped that Baili Hongzhuang would die. Next, under the horror-filled eyes of everyone, Xuanyuan Huan straightened his back in front of Baili Hongzhuang. He had hurt Baili Hongzhuang. In order for the wedding to be withdrawn, he had repeatedly insulted her and also regarded their marriage as a joke, a stain that could not be washed off. It is also because of this attitude that Baili Hongzhuang's life was so difficult. If it was not for Baili Hongzhuang who saved him back when he was sick, then he would already have died. Therefore, even if it is awkward, he was willing. "I am sorry." Xuanyuan Huan's voice was loud and full of apologies. He used to be arrogant, but after experiencing all the things that followed, he also felt that he could not go on like that. Although he was now kneeling in front of Baili Hongzhuang, he felt that his life was finally straight. The crowd was stunned. The entire hall was deadly silent. If the scene was passed out, it was likely that no one would believe it. Xuanyuan Jing's legs were also wobbling. At the beginning, he had ridiculed Baili Hongzhuang. Now that she was back, he did not know if she wanted to deal with him. Baili Hongzhuang was calm and looking at Xuanyuan with an indifferent gaze. This man originally disgusted her. If it was not for Xuanyuan Huan, the previous Baili Hongzhuang would not have committed suicide and would not have been swallowed up. Therefore, Xuanyuan Huan owed the life of Baili Hongzhuang. Later on, Xuanyuan Huan changed a few ways. Baili died in her hands, but Xuanyuan Huan did not say it out, not wanting to create troubles for her. After experiencing many things, she was also a little bit indignant, but the rest was just indifferent. She can see that Xuanyuan Huan was truly remorseful. The previous things had already happened, and he couldn't change it even if she wanted to. Nowadays, she no longer cared about this. The only thing that mattered to her was the man who was willing to shelter her from the wind and the rain. As for everything before, let it end here. Xuanyuan Huan stared at Baili Hongzhuang, and if she picked to kill him, he would not say anything in defense. Looking to the side, Baili Hongzhuang looked at the emperor and the empress up high on the platform. Both their faces were filled with apologized. Although Dibei Chen was treated like this in Fengbua country, they were helpless. "Forget it, just get up." Baili Hongzhuang's lips parted slightly. Her eyes were calm and indifferent, as if Xuanyuan Huan in front of her was merely a stranger whom she had never met before. The officials present heard the words of Baili Hongzhuang, and they were relieved. Fortunately, Baili Hongzhuang chose to forgive the prince. Otherwise, it really became hands-on. They did not know how to clean up the mess. However, Xuanyuan Huan's heart was even more heavy after seeing the indifference in the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang. If she hated him, at least he still had a place in her heart. But with the current attitude, it was obvious that she regarded him as a stranger, not even worthy of hate. There was a bit of surprise in Dibei Chen's eyes. Baili Hongzhuang had been humiliated so much over the past few years, but now it was easily resolved. Even so, Chen looked at Baili Hongzhuang, and he understood her. The reason that she had made this decision was not because of the other people, but because she genuinely had put it down. After really letting it all go, there was no need to care about it. Even if Xuanyuan Huan died in front of her, she would feel nothing. Perhaps the scene was more desirable than if she had angrily punished everyone. If she had been immersed in the original pain, Baili Hongzhuang would not have been happy. Only after being able to put it down would she be able to look forward to a new tomorrow. Xuanyuan Huan also slowly stood up, looking at Baili Hongzhuang, who was so generous and had let him go. He was even more ashamed when thinking about it. Although he was bigger than Baili Hongzhuang, he could not compare to her. It was awkward. Suddenly, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang fell onto Yuyue, who was not too far away. Since at this point in time, Xuanyuan Huan was not looking for trouble with her, she could leave him be. But Yuyue wanted to make her unhappy, so it would not be her style unless she fought back. Feeling the gaze of Baili Hongzhuang, Yuyue's heart sank slightly. Why was she so unlucky? If she had known that the identity of Baili Hongzhuang was completely different from what she had expected, then she would never have dared asking for trouble today. But she was no prophet, so she could not have expected it. I think that the future crown princess is too ugly, not at all suitable for you. It is better to abandon her. What do you think? Baili Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly, as they were drawn into an enchanting smile when she looked at Xuanyuan Huan. Since Yuyue wanted to be a crown princess, she will ensure that she did not become a crown princess. Since she was intending to destroy the feelings between Baili Hongzhuang and Chen, there was no way she was going to forgive her. As soon as it was said, everyone's eyes landed on Yuyue's body. The face underneath the veil was rapidly paling. Hearing the words, Xuanyuan Huan nodded his head without hesitating. Okay. Yuyue's body trembled, and her face was as pale as a corpse's. She had waited for such a long time to become a crown princess. Now, just because of the words of Baili Hongzhuang, her dreams have been shattered. The efforts have been turned into nothing. However, everything was done by herself. If it was not for her initial intention of provoking Baili Hongzhuang today, perhaps the situation would not have become this serious. In my opinion, her father has hidden it for so long. Chen interjected, and Li Chengqian's face immediately changed. An unspeakable panic spread in his heart. His daughter was no longer the future crown princess, but he could not afford to let it implicate him. However, Xuanyuan did not hesitate after hearing Chen's words. Come here, take away the position of Li Chengqian as our prime minister and let him become a civilian. The guards immediately went into the hall and took off Li Chengqian's black silk hat. He was then unceremoniously dragged out of the hall. Chen, while he was being dragged out, Li Chengqian was unwilling and was shouting, but for what he was saying, no one was in the mood to listen. Since Li Chengqian had been demoted to a civilian, Li Yuyue naturally had nothing else to do at the banquet. She too was driven out of the hall. This was the last time they entered the palace in their lifetimes. Li Yuyue kept yelling. Her eyes were filled with hatred for Baili Hongzhuang, but although she was yelling, no one cared. The royal banquet ended with everyone shocked. Xuanyuan sealed the information, and everything that had transpired stayed hidden. No gossip was spread. Chen's identity was extraordinary, and they all understood the seriousness. And after what happened at tonight's banquet, they all took it for granted that they had to stay silent. For some time, although the military and civil officers were unaware of what had happened, they still told their families that they should not offend the Chen Wangye. After the banquet ended, Baili Hongzhuang and Chen went to General Baili's home. In Baili Hongzhuang's memories, this place had never brought her even 1 ounce of joy, and all of the memories were unbearable. She wanted to go here, for this would be the last time she came back. After today, she would end all her relationship with the general. Baili Jintao had not expected that Baili Hongzhuang would come. He blinked a few times, and was so shocked that he failed to believe his eyes. He wanted to say something, but he did not know where to start. Baili Jintao knew that Baili Hongzhuang had already been very good to him and had to thank her for not making trouble for him at today's banquet. Otherwise, his end would have been just as bad as Li Qinqian's. Baili Hongzhuang, how come you are here? Baili Xuan did not dare to disrespect Baili Hongzhuang at this moment. Otherwise, as long as Di Beichun said the word, his life would be gone. Baili Hongzhuang faintly glanced at Baili Xuan, but she ignored him and turned to Di Beichun. Wait for me here for a while. Di Beichun nodded slightly. Go on. He already knew Baili Hongzhuang's plan. The reason that she did not make any problems for Baili Jintao today was because she had grown up in the general's house, and also mainly because of Qin Yuyue. Baili Xuan's face was a bit ugly when he realized that Baili Hongzhuang was ignoring him, but he still dared not speak. General Baili, let's go inside, Baili Hongzhuang said slowly. Listening to the name that Baili Hongzhuang called out, Baili Jintao knew that she had not forgiven him. His face looked slightly lost, and it was completely different from usual. Okay, inside the house. Baili Jintao was seated opposite Baili Hongzhuang. He was now very uncomfortable whenever he faced her. This was a change that he himself had not even realized. The room was silent, and the atmosphere slightly tense. Baili Hongzhuang was the first to open her mouth and say, General Baili, I am here to tell you something. Go on. Baili Jintao nodded his head. I am actually not your daughter. When the words came out, Baili Jintao's face suddenly changed. He was confused, and the difference between the old Baili Hongzhuang and the new was too obvious. Was the woman in front of him not the real Baili Hongzhuang? Who are you? Baili Hongzhuang waved her hand and explained, General Baili, you've misunderstood. I really am Baili Hongzhuang, but I'm just not your child. In the beginning, Mrs. Qing wanted to win your affection by pretending to be pregnant. Truth was that she wasn't with child. I am just a child she picked up and raised. How is this possible? Baili Jintao looked at Baili Hongzhuang with shock. He could not believe that what she said was the truth. The look on Baili Hongzhuang's face was casual as she continued. You had not seen her since the moment she said she had become pregnant, so the lie was not seen through. In fact, I also first learned about this when I was sorting through Mrs. Qing's heirlooms. Her diary stated everything very clearly. I believe it cannot be fake. Baili Jintao sunk into silence. The words of Baili Hongzhuang were simply impossible to refute. In fact, just as Baili Hongzhuang had said, when Qin Yuyue was pregnant, he did not care too much before she was born. If Qin Yuyue intentionally concealed this matter, then it was entirely possible to do so. Just as Baili Hongzhuang said, Qin Yuyue did not need to write such a lie in her diary, so there was only one explanation. It was the truth. Even so, I have grown up in the general's home for more than a decade. I hope that General Baili will be able to live a good life. I believe that the royal family will treat you well on behalf of Di Beichun's reputation, but you and I will return to being strangers. The feelings of Baili Hongzhuang were calm and indifferent. For Baili Hongzhuang, there really was no emotions left. In the past 10 years, although they had the name of father and daughter, they had not had even the slightest bit of relationship. If she did not care about Qin Yuyue, how could she have let them off? When her voice fell, she had already stood up. She was not speaking anymore and went straight out of the house. She and Baili Jintao had become strangers. There was nothing to say anymore. Baili Jintao looked at the back of Baili Hongzhuang. He had not seen the diary left by Qin Yuyue, so he was not sure whether or not she was speaking the truth. However, he was able to confirm that in the future neither he nor Baili Hongzhuang would have any connection. All of this was ruined by his own hands. Baili Xuan had seen that Baili Hongzhuang had left with Di Beichun and could not help but enter the house and ask, Father, what was it she said to you? Baili Jintao waved his hand. It was as if he had gotten old in an instant. She won't be coming back again. As soon as the words were said, Baili Xuan was also stunned. Today, Baili Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were so famous. He too wanted to steal some of their limelight. Listening to the words of his father, he understood that Baili Hongzhuang was now completely unrelated to their general's home. His wishful thinking was broken just like that, and the expression on Baili Haoxuan's face became ugly to behold. Chen and Baili Hongzhuang walked on the street. There were very few pedestrians on the roads. The two figures were shrouded in moonlight. Chen's big hand gently clasped over Baili Hongzhuang's, and his gentle voice suddenly sounded in her ear. "How are you feeling?" The lips of Baili Hongzhuang curled into a smirk. "You asked me how I was feeling at the banquet? Also there, with everything that has happened." Chen looked at Baili Hongzhuang. He only wanted her to be happy, but he could feel her sorrow. "I was naturally very happy at the banquet. The humiliation suffered in those years has all been completely vented." Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. From now on, she would no longer be the former trash of the general's household who was ridiculed and trampled upon. Instead, she had become a person that everyone looked up to. At the general's home, I did not belong there, but I am after all human, and my heart is a bit more touched by this matter. She had all the memories of the original Baili Hongzhuang, but even so, she was not the original Baili Hongzhuang and could not really feel how she felt. Therefore, she just pitied the previous Baili Hongzhuang and sighed. She did not know how she would feel if she knew of everything that had happened. For herself, she is still full of hope. The future is what mattered the most to her. Chen's hand was holding Baili Hongzhuang's tightly. His voice was filled with relief and adoration. "In the future, I am by your side. It is enough to just think about me." The next day the sun was high on the cloudless sky. Baili Hongzhuang and Chen had left Fumbua country after they had cleaned up. The place did not have much meaning for them now. Kanglan College only had 1 month of vacation, and they had already been away for more than half a month. It was time to return to the college. Ji Wenbin, Dong Sairu, and Du Tianxiang all came to say goodbye. Although no one had said anything, they could still feel that it would take a long time before Baili Hongzhuang would be coming back. After waving goodbye, Baili Hongzhuang turned away. Ji Wenbin looked at the two figures who were riding their horses, and his heart was filled with blessings for their happiness. He did not know when he would see Baili Hongzhuang again. When Baili Hongzhuang and Chen returned to Kanglan College, the school was filled with life. Many students had returned, and even more had never left in the first place. Mu suddenly appeared in front of Chen. "Young master," Chen nodded slightly. "What is it?" The time Mu had been with him was not short. Unless something had happened, Mu would not have directly appeared in front of him and Baili Hongzhuang without permission. Hearing the words, Mu could not help but glance at Baili Hongzhuang and hesitation slightly, his expression showing uncertainty. Chen just waved his hand. "Say it." There should be no secrets between himself and Baili Hongzhuang. He did not need to hide. Something happened at the sect. Miss Han was very dissatisfied with what happened in the ruins, and those people are about to begin moving. There's a little bit of helplessness in his expression. When a young master was staying at the college, the people of the sect had long since been very vocal. In addition, we have heard about the Jiupin Zizhi, but I am afraid that if the little lord does not come out personally, it will be difficult to take it back. Chen's eyes were filled with calmness when he heard how the people of the sect were uneasy. As soon as he had left, they had already made trouble. He did not know whether or not Little Master would wait for the sovereign to come back. Then the situation would be much better. Chen, go on, Baili Hongzhuang said. "I am not in danger at the school. You do not have to worry about me. The Jiupin Zizhi is very important. You have to find a way to get it." She believed that Chen had a way to deal with the problems in the sect. After all, Chen was silent for 3 years, but had only spent a few months to settle everything. Now that he left for a few months, what kind of waves could they not already have brewed? She is very worried about the Jiupin Zizhi. These were the treasures that could not be found easily. Naturally, they could not let it go. Chen looked deeply at Baili Hongzhuang. Worry was evident within his eyes. "Is it better if you are coming with me?" He was worried about leaving Baili Hongzhuang here. In case of danger, he would be unable to help her. Baili Hongzhuang thought for a moment, but shook her head. A soft smile was on her lips. I cannot walk into your world with my current strength. When I am stronger, I will travel with you all over the world. She understood that with the status of Beichen, those who wanted to deal with him could not be simple characters. If Beichen went out alone, then he would be invincible. However, if she followed, then she would become the weak spot of Beichen. She was naturally unwilling to become a weakness for him. What she wanted was to stay by his side and be able to face the world without fearing any threats and challenges. She was not willing to rely on constantly being protected by Beichen. This was her pride as the owner of the Baili family, the pride in her heart. Her pride made it impossible for her to just become an accessory, instead of relying on her own strength to achieve her goals. She believed it would not be long before Han Shilling would lose all sense of pride in front of her, because she would completely smash the confidence of the practitioners who were originally proud in front of her. When Beichen looked at Baili Hongzhuang, he saw her unyielding soul. It was her pride, fierce and strong, firm and determined. If Baili Hongzhuang had declined for any other reason, he might have refused. However, the reason she declined was this, so he could not find any excuse to refuse her. Because of the pride of Baili Hongzhuang, he could only give up. As long as he loved her, he would never let her suffer. He knew his own lady's strength. The only times she was not outstanding were when she intentionally underperformed. He believed that it would not be long before she would proudly stand by his side. Heimu looked at Baili Hongzhuang with amazement. He had long since known that she was not an ordinary girl, but now he understood that it was because of this that his little master had been so smitten with her. When he heard the words of Baili Hongzhuang, he could not help but feel a sense of admiration towards her. Originally, he had worried that Baili Hongzhuang would have dragged down Beichen's speed of advancement, but now he knew that this was not the case at all. From the few words of Baili Hongzhuang, he could feel her ambition. Good. Beichen placed a hand on her shoulder. I will settle the things at Tianxiang and get my hands on the Jiupin Zizhi, after which I'll return to you. The deep black eyes were staring straight at Baili Hongzhuang, as if Beichen wished to imprint her whole figure into his heart. This was just a short separation. He would return her soon. However, nowadays he was not at all willing to be separated from Baili Hongzhuang. He knew that she would understand his worries. Baili Hongzhuang chuckled lightly, and her lips were pulled into a gentle smile. I will wait for your return. The practice at Kingland College was not helpful to Beichen. He was only there for the sake of accompanying her. Yuyue's purpose at the college was to upgrade her strength as soon as possible, so that she could stand side by side with Beichen. After this, Beichen left a soft kiss between Baili Hongzhuang's eyebrows. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Then I'm going go. Baili Hongzhuang was also filled with affection as she looked at Beichen. When he came back, she would be even stronger. After Beichen left, Baili Hongzhuang went alone to the special enrollment dormitory. Hongzhuan, you're back. Before Baili Hongzhuang had the time to open her door, the door opposite had already been opened and Zhiqing stuck out her head, her expression filled with excitement. Baili Hongzhuang smiled gently as she nodded her head. When did you come back? There is still some time left of the vacation. I returned 2 days ago. I was simply too bored at home, so when I saw the chance I returned to the college. Zhiqing laughed. While speaking with Baili Hongzhuang, she looked back, but she found that she had not even seen a trace of Beichen and could not help but wonder, Hongzhuang, did he not return with you? She knew how close those two were. If Baili Hongzhuang was here, then Beichen should definitely also be here. He had some things he needed to deal with and left first. I guess that he will return after a few days. Zhiqing's face lit up in understanding. You are right, with the status of Beichen, he has a lot he needs to deal with. Now the identity of Beichen was no longer a secret. As the young lord of Tianxiang sect, he had to be very busy. For the sake of accompanying Baili Hongzhuang, Beichen must have suffered a lot of pressure. After talking a bit with Zhiqing, Baili Hongzhuang returned to her room. As of now, she had been studying inscriptions for a while. Although she had practiced many times within the chaos ring together with the old man, she had actually still not created an inscription. Taking advantage of the time she had now, it was the best chance to draw an inscription. Practice makes perfect, and every inscription artist needed a large quantity of materials. It was just like an alchemist also need to be cultivated under the use of numerous herbs. Only after many times would they gain an understanding of the profession. This kind of understanding couldn't be ignored by others. It was an understanding of how many and how much of each material to add, and for an inscription artist, it was especially impotent to know how much force to add. If you had this kind of understanding when writing inscriptions, then the success rate would become much bigger. Baili Hongzhuang had bought some materials for inscriptions before. The inscriptions she wanted to draw were not difficult, and thus the materials were easy to find. Inscriptions were constructed by different lines and shapes. Different patterns had different effects, and when they were placed on top of one another, the effects would change. In the eyes of others, it may be that the patterns were difficult to understand, and it was hard to see the difference between them. Only the inscriptionist would be able to understand what these patterns meant. Yet, just as the alchemist's formulas were confidential, the inscriptionists would not draw their inscriptions while others were looking. Once the inscription was formed, only a simple pattern would be visible. Not even all the structures of the inscription could be seen. Inscriptions were extremely tiresome to make. It took a long time to create an inscription. If there was a problem while making the inscription, one needed to redo it from the start. Baili Hongzhuang had followed the old man's methods for a very long time in order to master it. The materials required for the different inscriptions were not the same. At the same time, the better materials, the better the inscription's effect became. After creating the red ink and the inscription liquid, she prepared the inscription paper and began drawing. She was not planning on copying the intricate inscriptions this time. She felt that the inscriptions that the old man was teaching her had reached a high level. So instead, she tried something simpler. But even so, she could feel that although the level of the inscription was low, the effect was still quite outstanding. For some ordinary cultivators, as long as an inscription was placed onto their weapon, the power of the weapon would soar. One should not underestimate this assistance from the inscription. As long as the power of the weapon was improved, the combat ability of the cultivator would also be improved. Baili Hongzhuang was calm and tranquil. She picked up her inscription pen and gently dipped it in the inscription liquid before beginning to draw. The red inscription liquid had the same color as cinnabar, but at the same time a subtle golden light shone from it. It was bright and stunning to look at. As the inscription pen touched the inscription paper, she began drawing. Baili Hongzhuang's spirit had reached the highest levels, and all her focus was placed upon the inscription she was drawing. As an alchemist, she had always been able to concentrate. She had, at this moment in time, put all her focus onto the inscription. There was nothing else on her mind. Even before she touched the paper with the pen, she had already decided upon which pattern to draw, so she did not hesitate at all and drew it smoothly. All inscriptions needed to be fluent, and there was not allowed to be even one point where the drawing was uneven or broken. If such an occurrence happened, then the inscription would be flawed and not work. Not only this, the strength of which the pen was being used, the shaking of one's hands, or uneven amounts of inscription liquid would also lead to failure of the inscriptions. Because of this, it was harder to become an inscriptionist than an alchemist. It was also because of this that inscriptionists were even rarer than alchemists. When Baili Hongzhuang had finished drawing, she found that there were some errors that she had not seen when she had practiced. There had been a few pauses, and she had stagnated when drawing, which had resulted in the inscription being unusable. However, Baili Hongzhuang did not care about failing. Failure was the mother of success. She had prepared so many materials and was ready to fail. The second time ended in failure. The third time also ended in failure. It was not until the eighth time that Baili Hongzhuang was finally able to draw the lines smoothly enough with the inscription pen. She found that the reasons behind her previous failures were not enough control over the pen. On the 9th time, after drawing more than half the inscription, Baili Hongzhuang suddenly found that she did not have enough inscription liquid. All her previous tries had used it all up. 10th time ended in failure as well. Little Black and Little White, alongside Baishur, sat down in a row and were quietly watching Baili Hongzhuang constantly fail, their hearts shaking slightly. When the master was serious, it was quite terrible. She did not seem to have any idea of what failure meant, no signs of frustration. Only persistence shone through her eyes. As long as you persisted, you would succeed sooner or later. The three beasts kept quiet, not daring to disturb Baili Hongzhuang, but they kept staying by her side to show support. It was not before the 21st time that Baili Hongzhuang managed to succeed in drawing an inscription. The lips of Baili Hongzhuang slowly spread into a smile. After experiencing 20 failures, she had finally made an inscription, finally a successful drawing. Looking at the six-pointed star pattern, Baili Hongzhuang looked satisfied. She then placed it to the side and began drawing again. She had understood the method and naturally had to try again. Chapter 628. Tianxiang Auction House, 22nd attempt, was a failure. 23rd was also a failure. On the 30th attempt, Baili Hongzhuang was once again successful in drawing an inscription. Compared to the previous success rate, it had not increased. In the end, Baili Hongzhuang drew 3 inscriptions. Not because she was not willing to draw more, but because she had run out of inscription fluid. If she wants to continue, she has to create more inscription fluid, but in her current state, it is not a good idea to continue. She has already consumed a lot of her mental power. Although creating inscriptions does not require any strength, it requires mental energy. Seeing Baili Hongzhuang stop, the 3 beasts quickly went over to her. Little Black and Little White began massaging her shoulders, while Baishur massaged her back. Baili Hongzhuang had decided to pick up inscriptions, but she understood that it would take a long time to practice. As for the effect of the inscriptions she just drew, she is not too sure. It is better to sell them first and then understand a market. In her previous life, she did not know a lot about inscriptions. Even now, she does not know anyone who practices inscriptons. Inscriptionists are simply too rare. The next day, Baili Hongzhuang went to the auction house with her 3 inscriptions. Even in Lan City were no shops selling inscriptions. The reason why she did not sell the inscriptions at the college was because it was her first attempt at drawing an inscription. She could not be sure of the effect. She does not know what the market price is like, so she can't ask for just any price. She could auction it, but many students would raise the price since she was the one auctioning it, and if the inscription was not up to standard, she would suffer in the end. So, after all this consideration, she can only choose the auction house. She had faith in the appraisers of the auction house should have some kind of understanding of inscriptons, and as to what price it was fetching at the auction, she did not care too much. When Baili Hongzhuang went to the auction house, she wore a black cloak. She was not willing to disclose her identity. When you're new to a field, not standing out is the best action to take. Tianxiang Auction House was located in several cities in the Shangxian mainland, and Lan City had their own Tianxiang Auction House. Baili Hongzhuang did not hesitate to enter. She has a good impression of the auction house, and they also have a good reputation. After the appraisers saw the 3 inscriptions, their attitude towards Baili Hongzhuang changed. The number of inscriptions are very rare. Some inscription masters directly inscribe upon a weapon, so most of the inscriptions you can find on paper are not high-level inscriptions. Even so, the inscription will still be sought after by many practitioners, and these lower-leveled inscriptions have a huge market. Every cultivator wants to improve the power of themselves and their weapons, and how many cultivators are there in Shangxian mainland? You can't even imagine it. For this reason, the inscriptions are a hot item everyone wants. Girl, what effect does your inscription have? The appraiser asked. Baili Hongzhuang paused for a moment before she said, "It is a fire attribute inscription. Once it is used, it will summon a flame and improve the ability to kill your opponents." After listening to Baili Hongzhuang, The eyes of the appraiser brightened. This item, our auction house would like to accept. After handing over the inscription to the appraiser, Baili Hongzhuang returned to the college. This inscription was of the simplest kind, and thus she did not expect the price of the inscription at the auction to be high. What she wanted to know was the effect of the weapon, and after the owner made a move, she believed that she would see it. As long as the person was from Lan City, she believed that she would get to hear about it. After returning to her dormitory, Baili Hongzhuang went into closed-door cultivation. She placed all her mental energy on making inscriptions, and when the mental energy was used up, she began cultivating. When her mental power had been restored, she would continue drawing inscriptions, using all her time on making inscriptions or cultivating. Every time her mental energy was exhausted, she would become pale, and there would be a sense of loss in her mind. However, Baili Hongzhuang found that during this process, her mental strength had actually improved. Her mental strength was already very strong when compared with normal people, so it is very difficult to improve her mental strength. She did not think that this method would prove to be helpful. After this, Baili Hongzhuang was even more focused. She became too busy to be tired. During this practice session, her inscriptions also improved a lot. As she was drawing the same inscription, she no longer cared about the effect of the inscription. What she wanted was to grasp the feeling of drawing it. There was a difference between alchemy and inscription. Every time an alchemist refined a new pill, there would be a huge challenge. Even if it was refined for the first time, it might not be successful the second time. Inscriptions were different, however. As long as the inscription master mastered the method of drawing an inscription, the success rate would instantly increase. One success, even if the next inscription was another version. As long as the structure of the inscription was understood, the success rate of drawing another inscription would also increase. Therefore, it was harder to become an inscriptionist, but when you mastered the essence, it became much simpler. Unfortunately, this was the most difficult thing and also the reason that many couldn't become inscriptionists. 3 days later, Baili Hongzhuang received the money from the Tianxiang auction house. Looking at the money, Baili Hongzhuang was also slightly stunned. It seemed that the inscription was extremely popular on the market. Her inscription was a simple inscription, but it still had fetched a very good price. Unfortunately, the person who bought the inscription that Baili Hongzhuang had made was not from the city. As soon as he had purchased it, he left Lan City. This result made Baili Hongzhuang feel slightly helpless. She wanted to take a look at the specific effect of the inscription. Now it seemed she had to buy a weapon and try it out herself. As for her glass sword, it was naturally impossible. Even if she wanted to inscribe something onto the glass sword in the future, it had to be an excellent inscription. Using her current inscriptions on the glass sword would simply be a waste and a shame. In the meantime, she kept the glass sword close to her. When she was in the ruins, she had left her mark on the glass sword, but the glass sword had not approved of her yet. Once a weapon reached a certain level, it would gain a spirit, and it would choose its owner for itself. Even if you were to use the sword, if the sword had not acknowledged you as its owner, then it was impossible to exert all the strength of the glass sword. After handing over the inscription to the appraiser, Baili Hongzhuang returned to the college. This inscription was of the simplest kind, and thus she did not expect the price of the inscription at the auction to be high. What she wanted to know was the effect of the weapon, and after the owner made a move, she believed that she would see it. As long as the person was from Lan City, she believed that she would get to hear about it. After returning to her dormitory, Baili Hongzhuang went into closed-door cultivation. She placed all her mental energy on making inscriptions, and when the mental energy was used up, she began cultivating. When her mental power had been restored, she would continue drawing inscriptions, using all her time on making inscriptions or cultivating. Every time her mental energy was exhausted, she would become pale, and there would be a sense of loss in her mind. However, Baili Hongzhuang found that during this process, her mental strength had actually improved. Her mental strength was already very strong when compared with normal people, so it is very difficult to improve her mental strength. She did not think that this method would prove to be helpful. After this, Baili Hongzhuang was even more focused. She became too busy to be tired. During this practice session, her inscriptions also improved a lot. As she was drawing the same inscription, she no longer cared about the effect of the inscription. What she wanted was to grasp the feeling of drawing it. There was a difference between alchemy and inscription. Every time an alchemist refined a new pill, there would be a huge challenge. Even if it was refined for the first time, it might not be successful the second time. Inscriptions were different, however. As long as the inscription master mastered the method of drawing an inscription, the success rate would instantly increase. One success, even if the next inscription was another version. As long as the structure of the inscription was understood, the success rate of drawing another inscription would also increase. Therefore, it was harder to become an inscriptionist, but when you mastered the essence, it became much simpler. Unfortunately, this was the most difficult thing and also the reason that many couldn't become inscriptionists. 3 days later, Baili Hongzhuang received the money from the Tianxiang auction house. Looking at the money, Baili Hongzhuang was also slightly stunned. It seemed that the inscription was extremely popular on the market. Her inscription was a simple inscription, but it still had fetched a very good price. Unfortunately, the person who bought the inscription that Baili Hongzhuang had made was not from the city. As soon as he had purchased it, he left Lan City. This result made Baili Hongzhuang feel slightly helpless. She wanted to take a look at the specific effect of the inscription. Now it seemed she had to buy a weapon and try it out herself. As for her glass sword, it was naturally impossible. Even if she wanted to inscribe something onto the glass sword in the future, it had to be an excellent inscription. Using her current inscriptions on the glass sword would simply be a waste and a shame. In the meantime, she kept the glass sword close to her. When she was in the ruins, she had left her mark on the glass sword, but the glass sword had not approved of her yet. Once a weapon reached a certain level, it would gain a spirit, and it would choose its owner for itself. Even if you were to use the sword, if the sword had not acknowledged you as its owner, then it was impossible to exert all the strength of the glass sword. Baili Hongzhuang had inherited the inheritance of Bai Qing in the ruins, and Bai Qing was very generous towards Baili Hongzhuang. Not only did she give her best martial arts technique to Baili Hongzhuang, she also helped to erase the mark that had belonged to her on the glass sword. Bai Qing was a strong person, and the glass sword was used by her all year round. The mark on it was deeply edged into the sword. If she relied on her own strength and wanted to completely remove Bai Qing's imprint, then it would be hard. If she was Baili Hongzhuang from before the rebirth, it would have been no problem for her at all to remove the mark. But now her strength was much weaker. With Bai Qing's help, there was now a tacit understanding between herself and the sword. She also felt more comfortable with the sword, and she knew it would become her weapon in the future. Knock! She suddenly heard a knock on her door, and Baili Hongzhuang put away the things she used for inscriptions before she opened it. Outside, Zhiqing was looking at her with worried expression. Hongzhuang, are you trying too hard? How long do you plan on being in closed-door cultivation? Since she came back from Fengbo country, she had been in retreat every day long. She knew that Baili Hongzhuang was in closed-door cultivation, but this was too long, was it not? When she entered, she would not come out at all. Although Baili Hongzhuang had always done her very best, this was too exaggerated, was it not? Hongzhuang, you never come out these days. Zhiqing is very worried about you. Bai Junyu also appeared. If it wasn't because we sometimes heard movements inside, we would have thought that you had fainted. When practitioners went into closed-door cultivation, it could be long or short. Some of those with abnormal strength even spent decades. But with their current strength, it was really a long time that Baili Hongzhuang had been closed up. If it was him, he was afraid that being in the room for so long would kill him. There was a slight smile on the face of Baili Hongzhuang. She had always been serious about what she did. In her eyes, the closed-door cultivation was not long. But in the eyes of Zhiqing, it was indeed far too long. Is everything all right since you were looking for me? Baili Hongzhuang asked. Zhiqing nodded her head. The headmaster asked us special enrollment students to go to the principal's office. There should be something to announce. I see. Baili Hongzhuang understood instantly. The principal would only call for them if there was something to announce. She just didn't know what it was this time. Hongzhuang, when you went into closed-door cultivation this time, Dongfang came to ask about you. But everyone was worried that you were in a dangerous position, so we dared not bother you. Today I heard sound from inside, so I dare knock on your door. Zhiqing sighed as she looked at Baili Hongzhuang. She heard that Gong Shaoqing was a cultivation madman, but now it seemed as if the madness of Baili Hongzhuang was no less than Gong Shaoqing. Sorry about worrying you. There was a slight bit of apology in Baili Hongzhuang's eyes. During this time, she had devoted her heart to inscriptions and had not cared about anything else. Only the time she went out to sell the inscription at the auction, it seemed that they all thought she had gone out to buy dry food. As long as nothing is wrong, Zhiqing smiled brightly. Clean up and we'll go to the principal's office. Baili Hongzhuang quickly freshened up and walked out of the dormitory. Here she saw Dongfang Yu, Gong Shaoqing, and the others had all gathered and were waiting for her alone. You're all here, Baili Hongzhuang smiled. When they saw her, there were smiles on their faces, but there was no shortage of worry in their eyes. Hongzhuang, you were in retreat for so long. Everyone were worried you had an accident. Dongfang Yu walked to the side of Baili Hongzhuang. A pretty and youthful face was filled with some concern. Baili Hongzhuang gently waved her hand. Don't worry about me. I am used to going in a closed-door cultivation, so I stayed in a room for too long without realizing it. Hearing this, everyone was somewhat stunned, and then they could not help but laugh helplessly. The closed-door cultivation of Baili Hongzhuang made them worried and sad. If she retreated, often wouldn't that? Everyone looked at one another and saw that the worry had not dissipated from the other's eyes. They had been friends with Baili Hongzhuang for a while, but they had never seen her go into such a retreat before. They had already heard from Zhiqing that Chen was not at the college because of something back at the Tianxiang sect. They all know the identity of Chen, and Han Xiling is definitely not a simple character. At the ruins, Han Xiling already expressed her attitude. They were afraid that Han Xiling would go between Baili Hongzhuang and Chen, and that their relationship would be much more complicated. When Baili Hongzhuang mentioned this matter to Zhiqing, it was not taken serious. However, now that she had been so desperate in closed-door cultivation, it could only be connected to Chen. It was not only Zhiqing who thought like this. Dongfang Yu and the others were thinking the same. You're fine. That's all that matters. Let's go to the principal's office. Dongfang Yu smiled and held the hand of Baili Hongzhuang, only thinking about how it was possible for him to make her happier. Zhiqing nodded her head. Let's go, otherwise they would have to wait for us. As soon as the voice fell, they made their way towards the principal's office. On the way, the feelings of Baili Hongzhuang felt different from before. What the difference was, she could not pinpoint. She could only feel a slight change. She felt a bit strange. Soon everyone arrived at the principal's office. President Ren Tianxiang and the vice principal Huan were both there. After seeing that Baili Hongzhuang and all the others had arrived, the faces of the principal and the vice principal both showed a smile. Principal, vice principal, they greeted them. Ren Tianxiang's face held a slight smile. Today I called you here because I have something to tell you. Everyone's eyes gathered on Ren Tianxiang's body. They already knew that he had to tell them something, but none of them knew what it was. Does anyone here know about Languang College? Ren Tianxiang slowly asked. Hearing the question, a strange color appeared on the faces of the people present. The name of Languang College was one they had naturally heard about before. However, they did not understand why he was asking this question. Baili Hongzhuang also had a certain understanding of a Languang College. When she had been recruited by Fu Hongbo and Lu Huayan, they had told her a bit about the colleges on the Shengxian mainland. The Kanglan College and the Languang College were the same, as in both places existed to train cultivators. However, Lingying College had a much more resounding reputation than Kanglan College. Amongst the colleges, it was the best of the best. When he noticed the slight change in the expressions on their faces, Ren Tianxiang understood that everyone who cultivated seemed to have known about Lingying College. Since everyone knows about Lingying College, I will not spend more time on introducing it. In our region, there are 3 major colleges, amongst which the Lingying College has the best reputation and it is also the strongest. Our college usually contend against the Baili College. However, in recent years, it turns out that Baili College has taken refuge under the wing of Lingying College. Therefore, their relationship is very good. And we, Kanglan College, we are slightly inferior. Ren Tianxiang said with a heavy voice. When the 3 colleges were founded, the 3 colleges were all equal. There was no big difference between them. Ren Tianxiang was the principal of Kanglan College, and he was feeling guilty and sad that the college had been reduced to such a state. I heard that the reason Lingying College has the reputation it has today is because it has been connected to the Qing Dynasty. With the support of the Qing Dynasty, the equipment and so on has been greatly improved, so it is no wonder that it has been growing stronger and stronger. Gong Shaoqing's eyes flashed with enlightenment. Not only Lingying College, but now also Baili College had begun to accept the sponsorship of the Qing Dynasty. The only college that was keeping a distance was the Kanglan College. This is also the reason why their college is at the bottom of the 3 colleges. If the Kanglan College also accepted the help and sponsorship of the Qing Dynasty, then the strength of the college would be improved. Ren Tianxiang signed. The 3 colleges were created for the sake of cultivating talents and remaining neutral. This was the idea of the first principle of our college. For this reason, I have always adhered to the beliefs of our first principle. When the Lingying College first brought up the idea of working together with the Qing Dynasty, I was against it. But now everyone is eager to improve and has forgotten the original purpose. Ren Tianxiang's face was slightly pale. The vicissitudes of life could be seen in his brightly shining eyes, as if he was thinking of a distant past. When the crowd saw their principal looking like this, they too felt a little heavy at heart. Thinking about the things that the principal had just said about the Lingying College, the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang flashed slightly, and she had already guessed what this was about. Ren Tianxiang was always able to continue insisting on following the original purpose of the first principle. This was something that was not easy to do, and it could be seen that he was not just a profiteer who tried to earn easily. The Lingying College is more practical. If the college was independent, then there was no bond that bound the cultivator. The college would support the geniuses in doing what they wished for after finishing their time at the college. Because the school was originally established to help talented young cultivators, they would let the geniuses decide for themselves. However, now that the Lingying College had gone under the banner of the Qing Dynasty, people who studied at the Lingying College would be expected to join the Qing Dynasty upon finishing their studies. In this situation, she could not say who was right, but she respected Ren Tianxiang for being able to stick with the original purpose of the Kanglan College. This is not the most important. Ren Tianxiang waved his hand. The 3 colleges have always had a tournament. It used to be once every 5 years, but this time it was moved ahead of schedule. When the words were said, it was as if everyone's expression changed slightly. So they were the ones who would participate in the competition between the 3 colleges? This time you even surpassed the children from martial arts families when you seized the ancient heritage in the ruins. Therefore, the name of our college is spreading like a wildfire. Many practitioners arrive and wants to become members of the Kanglan College. Such a big movement, it is impossible to hold back, and thus they decided to hold the college tournament in advance. Ren Tianxiang sneered. He knew what the 2 other colleges were planning. Amongst the 3 colleges, Lingying College and Baili colleges had already agreed, so even if he disagreed, it would be pointless. This time, the college tournament will be held at Lingying College. I'm going to let you go to the competition. What do you think? Ren Tianxiang's eyes landed on Baili Hongzhuang and the others. The strength of these special enrollment students was undoubtedly the strongest amongst his college. If you wanted to do good at the tournament, you must naturally send them. Gong Shaoqing and the others looked at each other, but they did not refuse. It would be a great help to them to go to the Lingying College and see the strong practitioners. Lingying College was so powerful that they would be able to gain something from the Lingying College practitioners. If you rank in the tournament, you would become famous. Every college tournament could bring people to the top. Once they had achieved a ranking, their status would rise, and even some forces would be happy to extend an invitation to them. Therefore, the college tournament was highly anticipated by many students. There should have been 2 years until the next college tournament, and they thought they might not be at the college at that time. That had been moved forward was simply as if meat pies had fallen from the sky. Baili Hongzhuang also wanted to see the other 2 colleges. Recently, she had been practicing, but there had been no rival. If she could meet someone who could fight against her at the college exchange, then she was also happy. "We are willing," all of them answered in unison. When listening to their answer, Tianxiang smiled. "I hope that you can achieve good results in this college tournament." This time, not only is there a strength test, there is also an alchemist test. "Lu Qingwei, you should be prepared." Lu Qingwei nodded her head. After returning from the ruins, she had decided on her future goals. She had decided to put all her energy into refining medicinal herbs and pills. Instead of focusing on martial arts and refining, if she just focused on one, she would have better results in the future. Please do not be too happy. This time, in the ancient ruins, we from the Kangling College has stolen the show. Lingying and Beihai College suddenly suggesting the tournament now. It is likely they will go together against us. You should be mentally prepared. Huan Qiu's face was a bit ugly. This tournament felt a bit like the Feast of Hongmen. When hearing the worried words, everyone had a dignified expression on their faces. The meaning of Huan Qiu's words were easy to understand. The possibility of such a Feast of Hongmen was not small. They should not be too optimistic. We understand. The crowd nodded their heads, and they all mentally prepared themselves. Although they didn't know what cards the Lingying and the Beihai College were holding up their sleeves, they could only prepare for the situation at hand when it happened. Seeing that everyone had realized and started changing their minds around, Huan Qiu nodded his head in relief. His biggest concern was that these students participated in the tournament and was destroyed by their own self-confidence. This kind of thing had happened before. As a cultivator, self-confidence is extremely important. But if you were overly arrogant, you would destroy your future path. That situation would be terrible. All of you go and prepare. We will leave Kangling College after 3 days. Yes, the students left the principal's office, but their mood was complicated. Everyone was thinking about what to do next. In my opinion, Lingying and Beihai College will definitely make a move against us. Naturally, they want to crush our college, Zhiqing said. Dongfang nodded slightly. Amongst the 3 colleges, Lingying College and Beihai College are united. Naturally, they want to crush us. We must be careful. Since they suddenly propose to hold the college tournament now, they must have a certain grasp of the victory. Gong Shaoqing's face was slightly ugly. We're going to go forward and challenge them all. To put it bluntly, the Lingying College and the Beihai College had seen their advance and wanted to defeat them so that they could not continue there to expand. As a result, many of the students who were now flocking to Kangling College would turn to their arms instead. Counter soldiers with arms, water with earth. Since we have no other choices, then we will advance boldly and see their move. The lips of Baili Hongzhuang turned upwards into a smile. The bright phoenix eyes shone with a confident light. For this kind of thing, if they worried too much, it would be useless. In the end, they just had to fight against the students of the other 2 colleges. If it was fair and they lose, then they can only blame their own skills. But if the other party made a sinister move and she discovered it, she would never let the other party be happy. The people who were originally worried suddenly felt a bit relaxed after hearing the words of Baili Hongzhuang. Indeed, their worry was useless. It was better to improve their strength in this process. When they were in the duels, they could lean more. After returning to the room, Baili Hongzhuang began preparing something that might be used later. Last time she bought a lot of herbs from Jiupin, she also took some equipment from him. Some things, they might not look like they were useful on normal days, but they could play a decisive role at the crucial moment. Just as they have dealt with Qing in the past, these things were best to have prepared. In the remaining 2 days, Baili Hongzhuang was cultivating in the cultivation tower. During this time, she was not far from breaking through into the second step of the Red Realm. Baili Hongzhuang and the others gathered at the entrance of Kanglan College. Ordinary students noticed that Baili Hongzhuang and the other people had packed their bags and were preparing to depart. Their eyes were shining with envy. This was the difference between normal students and the students from the special enrollment class. Only students who were from the special enrollment class could leave when they felt like it, while they could only spend every day practicing within the college. Normal students had to spend a year practicing at the college before they were allowed to go out. I heard that the students of the special enrollment class are going to Languang College to participate in the college tournament. I also heard that the tournament was suddenly moved ahead of schedule. If they can achieve good results in the tournament, their future will be bright. I thought it was 2 years away and that I still had time, but now it is suddenly moved ahead of time. The people were filled with envy and regret. But even so, they still hoped that the special enrollment students could get good grades. After all, they were all students of Kanglan College. If the students of Kanglan College achieved good results in the tournament, then they too would share the glory as members of the same college. Since everyone is here and is ready, let's go. The team leader, Huan Yuyue, was responsible for leading the students to Qing Dynasty. Lu Huayan and Fu Hongba were the mentors for the special enrollment class, so naturally they also had to go with them. Baili Hongzhuang and the others nodded their heads slightly. The trip to the Qing Dynasty was long, and their time was tight. You start, we will follow, Lu Huayan said. Although they didn't know what is going to happen, they still wanted to see the students rely on their own strength to make it to the Qing Dynasty. On the way, Lu Huayan and the other teachers went missing. The students had free hands. The next moment, everyone started traveling on the road to the Qing Dynasty. It takes at least half a month, even when we are hurrying. The Qing Dynasty is really far away. After seeing the vice principal and the 2 mentors leaving, Bai Junyu opened his mouth. He had always been the type of person who spoke all the time. Keeping him quiet was difficult. The strength of the Qing Dynasty is much stronger than the surrounding countries, such as Fengbua. It is truly a hegemon with a huge territory. Even if we are on the road for half a month, we will only arrive at the border of the Qing Dynasty. To reach the capital, we will need a full month. Dongfanyu looked at the crowd as he said, "Then it will take us 2 months to get there," Zhiqing said, slightly excited. She had never been so far away since her childhood. The Qing Dynasty was without a doubt the furthest away. Lu Qingyue smiled and nodded her head. The Qing Dynasty is far away from our college. The same goes for the Beihai College. Amongst the 3 colleges, Languang is in the center. It is also due to the long distance that the tournament is only planned for every 5th year. Gong Xiaoqing said, "Is the tournament always being held at Languang College?" Zhiqing asked, her expression betraying her confusion. Dongfanyu shook his head slightly. "No, it's not. The college tournament has a rule. The first place college is the one that hosts the next tournament," Dongfanyu explained. "So the last tournament was won by Languang College?" Zhiqing frowned. Although she had not been to Languang College, she had a feeling of dislike towards it. Dongfanyu and Gong Xiaoqing looked at each other with a bit of helplessness. Then they answered, "Not only the last time, but also the time before was won by Languang College. It is precisely because of this that the Kanglan College has been suppressed. It has been many years since it has been able to compete with the Languang and Beihai colleges." Gong Xiaoqing's eyes flashed with solemnity. "We have a great responsibility during this tournament. If we lose again, Languang College would have won 3 consecutive tournaments. then the reputation of our college, which has just risen, will fall back to the bottom. We have to do our best this time. Gong Xiaoqing's handsome face was serious and filled with decisiveness. He had a great feeling of belonging to the Kanglan College. Therefore, he did not want to see it fall to such depths. Hearing the words, everyone nodded their heads. As a student of the college, they decided to do their best. However, in addition to us, there is also the Baili College. Is it possible for them to win? Bai Jinyu thought out loud. Since there were 3 colleges, all 3 had to fight against one another. Why did Gong Xiaoqing only consider the Lingyin College their opponents? Baili College has already formed an alliance with the Lingyin College. Therefore, they will work together to deal with us. At the beginning, our principal and the principal of Lingyin College had an argument because of Lingyin College being sponsored by the Qing Dynasty. That time our college lost, and our principal had to admit that the Lingyin College was right. When a word was said, Baili Hongzhuang and the others were shocked. They did not expect such a thing had happened. At the thought of this, everyone felt heavy and that there was a burden on their shoulders. If they were to lose this time, not only would the principal lose face, he might also have to give up the values he believed in. That damned Lingyin College principal. I have not seen him yet, and I already think he is annoying, Zhiqing said angrily. In her eyes, although she did not have much contact with the principal, she still felt that he was a good principal. As a member of Kanglan College, how could she let her principal bow to another? In the eyes of Baili Hongzhuang, all doubts were gone. It seemed that they could only win this tournament. Master, in my opinion, this time Lingyin College and Baili College will definitely try to make a lot of problems for you, Little Black said. Baili Hongzhuang nodded her head slightly. Only this time, Lingyin College cannot win, and they will definitely pay for it. Next, the red lips of Baili Hongzhuang rose into a smile. The stronger the opponent, the more motivated I am to battle. I am looking forward to this. Baili Hongzhuang and a group of 8 people rushed to the Qing Dynasty. As a cultivator, whether it was energy or endurance, they were far above ordinary people. Therefore, they would travel much faster than others. Finally, after rushing for half a month, they arrived at the border of the Qing Dynasty. Languang Town. Everyone walked on the streets of Languang Town. As a border town, it was not at all deserted. Instead, it was actually incredibly bustling with life. People came and went, and the trade was prosperous. As soon as they walked into the town, they all showed a smile on their faces. Their feeling of exhaustion was reduced. We have been resting in the forest these last 2 days, and now we have arrived at a town. We could get a meal first, and then find an inn to rest in, Cui Haoyan suggested. These days they have been eating dry food, no hot meals. Agreed, everyone answered. They have been running for so long that they are tired. What's more, when resting in the wild, they could never relax their spirit. Even when they were asleep, they had to be alert. However, in an inn they could sleep without a worry. Everyone were hungry and just wanted to choose a restaurant where they could eat. Finally, they stopped at the door to a restaurant. As they walked in, they found that the place was filled with people. It was immensely lively. We will eat here, what do you think? Cui Haoyan asked with a smile. Okay. The faces of all the students were filled with a relaxed smile. As soon as they entered the restaurant, the scent of wine and food wafted into the noses of all of them. When they saw that people came in, the waiter rushed over. Dear guests, the second floor has no more space. There are only 2 tables on the first floor lobby. What would you like to do? Hearing this, Baili Hongzhuang and the others did not care. They wanted to eat dinner. They did not care where it was. The group of 8 people sat down at the 2 tables, 4 women at one and 4 men at another. Not long after, the dishes they ordered came up, and with the signature dishes filled with flavor, everyone started to eat with their chopsticks. Starting with the fish dishes, Zhiqing happily smiled. Having eaten dry food for so many days and finally getting a hot meal, I am really happy. Seeing the extreme happiness on the face of Zhiqing, Baili Hongzhuang and the others could not hold back a smile. You can be sure that now that we have arrived in the Qing Dynasty, the road should be bustling and we should not have to go hungry again. Baili Hongzhuang smiled lightly. There was a large wilderness between the two countries, but now they had entered the dynasty. Things were different, especially since they were headed for the Qing dynasty's imperial city. The way would be much smoother than before. Zhiqing nodded her head. That's also good. I haven't washed for a few days. I feel uncomfortable. While everyone were talking, several young cultivators dressed magnificently walked into the restaurant. There were both men and women, and their temperament was extraordinary. It was obvious that they were not ordinary people. "Give us an elegant room," a yellow-robed young man called out, his expression showing a bit of arrogance. When the waiter saw this, he knew that they were not good people, and he could not help but feel helpless. "Dear guests, I am sorry, but the rooms are all full." When he heard the words of the waiter, the yellow-robed man's brows wrinkled, and he had an unpleasant look in his eyes. "Then we will eat here." As they said this, they looked in the lobby and found that there was no space either, their expressions turning ugly. "Dear guests, as you can see, the first floor is also full," the waiter said helplessly. "I finally arrived at Languang town. I want to have a good meal. I did not expect this place to be full. I don't want to change place again." At this time, a woman in red dress amongst the people in the group spoke out. The woman's appearance was very outstanding. Her skin was white and her lips were red, but the arrogance she had in her expression ruined her beauty a little. Listening to the words of the woman in the red dress, the man in yellow robes changed his expression slightly and a smile was raised on his lips. "Jinglin, you can be sure that even if there is no space, I will make it so that there is space soon. Xuanyuan, my sister is not familiar with you." At this time, the woman with purple dress suddenly made a noise and looked at the man with the yellow robe. Xuanyuan's face was a bit ugly. This Lu Jingqi was always against him and causing trouble. "Xuanyuan, I am hungry. Handle this matter quickly." Lu Jinglin was carefree about the entire matter. "Sure." Xuanyuan smiled and nodded his head, turned to look at the waiter and said, "Listen well, get some tables cleared for us, otherwise I will tear this restaurant down." The waiter's face was ugly for a moment, and he quickly said, "Dear guest, I really have no way. The other guests have not eaten their food yet. I cannot drive them away." "I don't care. I only want to see the result." Xuanyuan looked proud. If he couldn't even handle this little thing, then he was useless. He took a purse and placed it on the counter. "When you get things done, this will be yours." Even so, the face of the waiter did not change. "Dear guest, the business of this restaurant is not like that. If there is anyone willing to leave for you, that's fine, but we will not chase anyone away." The people who were eating on the first floor all looked at Xuanyuan, but their eyes were filled with disgust over his overbearing manner. It's a bunch of hedonistic rich kids. Every time such a young master appears, it is nothing good. Is it not just being a bit stronger than others? It is not like they're so amazing, it is really annoying. This kind of hedonistic rich kid is far from good. Meeting him is bad luck. The people who whispered W are all ordinary people, but they had seen a lot before. "These people are too unreasonable," Zhiqing said while frowning. Zhang Yunfeng nodded her head. "From their appearance, they should be cultivados." So many cultivators gathered together, and the travel-worn appearance, they should not be from Languang town. Baili Hongzhuang faintly glanced at Xuanyuan and the others. Zhang Yunfeng's words made her curious, and she instantly understood. But instead of caring, she continued to eat. She had never been a noisy person. As long as they did not try to do anything to her, she did not care about them. Seeing the waiter's embarrassed expression, Xuanyuan was also feeling annoyed. "It seems that you will not understand unless you have been taught a lesson, so you know how to behave." As soon as the voice fell, the waiter's face was white as a sheet. He could guess that these people were cultivators. He was just an ordinary person. How could he be their opponent? At this time, a black-robed man walked out from behind the others and said to Xuanyuan, "Why say so much nonsense? Just drive away 2 tables of customers." The man's face was cold, and there was a bit of impatience within his eyes. Obviously, he was displeased with Xue Haoling and the waiter's argument. Hearing this, Xue Haoling nodded his head again and again. It was easy to see how much he respected this black-clothed man. Lu Jingqi had a smile on her face. Is it okay to drive them away together? Next, Xue Haoling and the others walked into the restaurant's lobby on the first floor. The waiter wanted to block them, but he did not have the courage. After all, he was really offended by these people. Xue Haoling and the others looked at the tables and saw who were eating. After the eyes landed on them, many felt uncomfortable and looked away. They did not know who would be the unfortunate ones. People like Baili Hongzhuang and her friends were still eating their meals, and when Xue Haoling's eyes landed on them, there was a bit of threat contained within. Lu Jingqi's eyes fell on a purple figure in the restaurant, because she found that she was wearing the exact same clothes as her. Sister, look at that table. Lu Jingqi looked at Lu Jinglin and pointed at Xia Zhiqing. Lu Jinglin's eyes swept over Xia Zhiqing, and she instantly understood her sister's plan. Her sister had never liked to share anything with others, and not even someone wearing the same clothes as her. Shuaolang, let us sit at this table, Lu Jinglin said. Looking at the direction that Lu Jinglin was pointing, Shuaolang saw a table with 4 women. Originally, he would never have chased away 4 women, as he would be blamed of bullying. However, he had liked Lu Jinglin for a long time. He would not refuse anything she asked of him. Everyone within the lobby looked at Baili Hongzhuang and the other 4 girls with pity. They were really unlucky. Baili Hongzhuang was seated with her back to the other people, but after seeing the sympathetic eyes of the other people, she could easily guess what had happened. Hongzhuang, they're coming towards us. Xia Zhiqing's face was filled with anger. So many people in the lobby, but they went for them. Did they think they were easy to bully? At this time, Xue Haoling's voice rang from behind Baili Hongzhuang. We need to use this table. Go away and I will pay for your food. Xue Ling looked proud, but then he saw the woman next to Baili Hongzhuang, and his face could not help but change a few times. So beautiful, even more beautiful than Lu Jinglin. Such temperament and looks, simply a goddess in every man's mind. Lu Jinglin also noticed this, her face turning ugly. Her appearance had always been praised by others, and now there was a woman who was even more beautiful than her. Oh, how generous! Xia Zhiqing stood up. Why should we go? Xue Haoling and the others were drawn to this other woman's appearance. It was not comparable to the other woman, but it was also charming. I told you to go, so you have to go. Lu Jingqi raised her eyebrows, and her expression was filled with arrogance. If you don't leave, don't blame us for driving you out. Bragging, Zhang Yunfeng also stood up and looked at Lu Jingqi with a glare. You are not the only cultivator here. Next, Zhang Yunfeng directly took out her sword and put on the table. At the same time, Gong Shaoqing and the others from the table next to them also stood up. They did not like to get into trouble, but they would not be bullied. When they saw Gong Shaoqing and the others also stood up, they were stunned. They thought the 4 girls at the table were alone. They had not expected the 4 men next to them to be together with them. As a result, it would become messy. Li Jingqi's face was ugly, and she had not expected to pick such a large group of people. I'll give you 3 seconds, Scram. The voice of Baili Hongzhuang was cold. This kind of person who was so arrogant, she did not need to give them even the slightest bit of face. With the words of Baili Hongzhuang, Xue Haoling's face instantly turned ugly. Although they had 8 people, it would just be a little troublesome. Never would they have expected that this white-dressed woman with her back to them would talk about them leaving. Such courage! Lu Jingqi snorted. Who are you to tell us to scram? We were eating here, and you ran to us for no reason, telling us to leave. That is such bad upbringing. I told you to scram. It is already giving you enough face. Baili Hongzhuang's voice was completely cold, not having the slightest temperature. This person is not even turning around. Even if it was to an ordinary person, this would be severe humiliation. This was an insult. When the words came out, Lu Jingqi and the others' faces turned colorful. This woman had a sharp tongue. They could not refute her at all. The other guests, after hearing Baili Hongzhuang, all felt that she was correct. All the people who were nervous before were now watching a great show. Shui Haoling had picked a hard bone. They just had to look at the white-clothed girl to know that they were equally important. Li Jingqi sneered in anger. If you have the ability to face us, then do so. Are you so ugly that you don't dare turn around? Li Jingqi had always been arrogant. So what if what she said made no sense? She was an unreasonable person, but strength was the truth. However, after hearing Lu Jingqi's words, Zhiqing could not help but laugh. This Lu Jingqi is really an idiot. Baili Hongzhuang is the most attractive of them all. Now she said that she was too ugly and afraid to meet people. Not only Zhiqing, but also Dongfang Yu and the others at the side could not help but laugh. If they said she was ugly, then no one would dare to say that they were beautiful. Next, under the gaze of Lu Jingqi and the others, Baili Hongzhuang slowly turned around. The beautiful face, which could make cities crumble, held a mocking smile. What did you just say? Xuanyuan took a deep breath of air when he looked at Baili Hongzhuang in front of him. He thought that Lu Qingwei was already the best amongst women, but then when he saw this white-dressed woman, he realized that there was one even more outstanding. Chapter 641 is looking for abuse all along. Shui Haoling had always thought that Lu Jinglin was a very beautiful woman. Throughout the entire Beihai College, Lu Jinglin and Lu Jingqi were very famous, and many practitioners pursued them. However, the eyes of these sisters were set high, and ordinary people could not even enter their eyes. Only special enrollment students could get to know them. He had long since regarded Lu Jinglin as his goal. Although Lu Jinglin was proud, at least she was not sharp-tongued. In his view, beautiful and powerful women had the capital to be arrogant. As for Lu Jingqi, it was too troublesome and her words would not easily be forgiven. Therefore, between the sisters, he has decided on Lu Jinglin. Nowadays, everyone at the college knew that he had Lu Jinglin as a goal, and that they are close usually. He was somewhat proud of this. He had never thought that the 4 women in front of him would be the same as Lu Jinglin. 2 of them were even better. Lu Jingqi saw the appearance of Baili Hongzhuang, and shock appeared in her eyes, before her face turned to the color of pig liver. She wanted to take the woman down, who knew she was just looking to be abused. You. Li Jingqi opened her mouth, but she did not know what to say. The original arrogance had disappeared. The people who were watching could not help but laugh at this scene. It was really such an interesting situation. The waiter was feeling better. He was really annoyed with Shui Haoling and the others, but he was not their opponent. Now seeing them eating a loss, he naturally felt much better. Baili Hongzhuang simply ignored Lu Jingqi and raised her fingers. 3. After listening to the words of Baili Hongzhuang, Shui Haoling's face was gloomy. This white-dressed woman was destroying their face. If they left like this, then where would their faces be? 2. Dongfang Yu and the others were standing at the same place without a care. In fact, the provocation that they had been subject to had aroused their anger. Now, Baili Hongzhuang was making them all happy. Girl, your attitude is bad. At this time, Languang stood up. His eyes were focused on Baili Hongzhuang. Within the cold eyes were a few colors. Such a beautiful woman. If she is too troublesome, it is a pity. When they saw Languang stand up, Lu Jinglin and the others had changes in their expressions. Everyone knew the attitude of Languang. He had been too lazy to deal with things ordinarily. Therefore, on the way, he rarely did anything, but they do not dare to look down upon him. Languang was the strongest amongst them. It was because they understood his temperament and personality that they were shocked that he suddenly stood up. Could it be that he stood up because of the white woman in front of them? Chapter 642. It is best to make friends thinking of this. The faces of Lu Jinglin and Lu Jingqi were ugly as they looked at one another. It is true that what we did was not correct. However, we can still make it right. How about making some new friends? Otherwise, if we truly move against one another, then there will be no benefits to any of us. Xiao Lanmei's face was filled with confidence. Although the other party had 8 people, they too had 8 people. Even though it was not clear how the strength of the other party was, they were all around the same age. Once they got hands-on and hurt one another, it would not become a good thing. Baili Hongzhuang looked at Xiao Lanmei indifferently. This guy looked sincere, but she did not forget what he had said before. This person is definitely not a soft persimmon. With the voice of Xiao Lanmei falling, the expressions of Xia Zhiqing and the others changed slightly. As Xiao Lanmei said, if they truly began fighting, the result could not be guessed. However, moments after, Baili Hongzhuang turned her back to them, sat down, and continued to eat. Xiao Lanmei's face turned ugly, and Lu Jingqi could not help but take advantage of the scene to say, "Hey, what do you mean by acting like this? He already said that we should fix it, then I will pretend that nothing has ever happened. As for being friends, everyone is different, but that's our freedom to choose." After seeing Baili Hongzhuang's behavior, all the others sat down and began eating again, not paying any mind at the others, pretending that Xiao Lanmei and his friends were heir. At the beginning, Baili Hongzhuang was the new girl in their special enrollment class. Now, after being in the ruins, Baili Hongzhuang had already broken through to the innate realm. In the world of cultivators, strength was what determined everything. No one looked at people's age. For this reason, today, Baili Hongzhuang had slowly become their leader. All of them were convinced about her strength and ability. Xiao Lanmei's face was a bit green. For the first time when he tried to make a friend, someone refused, not even giving him any face. This made him feel immensely uncomfortable. Don't think you are something special. Xiao Lanmei wants to make friends with you, and you are still unwilling? Lu Jingqi raised her voice. Her eyes were filled with shock. Do you know who we are? When the words of Lu Jingqi was said, the expression of Gong Shaoqing and the others changed a bit. Previously, they felt that so many young cultivators gathered together were likely coming from a college. When they heard Lu Jingqi's words, they affirmed their thoughts. So the students of Beihai College are this arrogant when traveling outside? The red lips of Baili Hongzhuang hooked up slightly, and the smile made her resemble an evil spirit. The black eyes were shining with a cold light. Originally, she just wanted to have a good meal, but because of the actions of these guys, she had lost her appetite. Beihai College. The people in the restaurant were stunned after hearing the name of Beihai College. Although Lingying College was the best-known college within Qing Dynasty, the name of Beihai College was still very good. It was a gathering place for many young geniuses. These young people actually came from Beihai College? That was an extinguished identity. When Baili Hongzhuang's voice fell, the expression on Lu Jingqi's face constantly changed in color. She had not expected that this white-dressed woman would be able to guess their identity right away. Chapter 643, Kangling College's Special Enrollment Students. What was most unexpected for these students from Beihai College was not that the woman in white had accurately guessed their identity. What truly surprised them was that the woman had guessed their identity and still had such an attitude. We are not ordinary students of Beihai College. Lu Jingqi could not help but stress. In the eyes of ordinary people, the students of Beihai College were already unreachable, but the future of special enrollment students was even brighter, not something a normal student could compare to. Aren't you just special enrollment students, right? Xia Zhiqing sneered. For her, Lu Jingqi was the worst of them all. In the past, Lu Jingqi had pointed her finger at them because this woman was wearing the same dress as her. She was also very proud of being a special enrollment student from Kangling College. However, she was far from as arrogant. Hearing Xia Zhiqing's words, Lu Jingqi was even angrier than before. Who is this person, daring to have such an attitude? What are you doing? Who are you? Don't you know how special it is to be a special enrollment student of Beihai College? When the voice of Lu Jingqi fell, the expression of the Beihai College's special enrollment students' faces were not looking too good. All of them were looking at Baili Hongzhuang and his friends. As a special enrollment student, they had always been respected by everyone. When have they ever heard someone provoke them like this? This tone, they have long since felt insulted. It seems they're going to fight. They are the special enrollment students of Beihai College. I don't know the identity of the white-dressed woman and her companions, but they do not have the slightest fear on their faces. If they really fight, then they will give us a good show. There were a lot of people talking. Seeing such a good show was rare on normal days. They also want to know how strong the special enrollment students of Beihai College were. Gong Shaoqing and the others took out their weapons, and the contest between the cultivators has always been with real weapons. They had no intention of actually paying attention to them. But Lu Jingqi had been looking for trouble. If they continue to be patient, wouldn't they be sullying the name of their college? What's more, the students of Beihai College were their opponents, and they couldn't help but be offended. They were standing in different camps. Kangling College, special enrollment class, Gong Shaoqing slowly announced. As soon as the words were said, Xiao Lanmei and the others were stunned. No matter what they thought, they did not think that the white-dressed woman and his friends turned out to be special enrollment students from Kangling College. This was truly a narrow road. They were all rushing towards Languang College, but they had not imagined to meet each other at the border to the Qing Dynasty. Kangling College. The crowds of the restaurant were dumbfounded at the moment. The Kangling College was equally famous. It had not lost to Beihai College at all. They did not expect the two colleges to collide like this. It was no wonder they did not give each other face. It turned out that they were representing two different colleges. Xiao Lanmei suddenly understood why Baili Hongzhuang had such an attitude towards him. It turned out that she had already seen through their identity. Although they had not completely torn faces with each other, there were a lot of grievances between the two colleges. Thinking of this, Xiao Lanmei's face turned better. I was originally also a member of the Kangling College, Shui Houlang sneered. He had worried about where the others came from, but after hearing that they came from Kangling College, he felt that there was no need to worry. Chapter 644. If you have the ability, then let's go out and fight. The Kangling College had not had good results in the last two college tournaments. Although this time, the story about the ancient ruins had spread everywhere, the college tournament was especially prepared to deal with them. Once Kangling College collapsed once more, it would be impossible for it to lift its head in front of Languang College. Beihai College had already joined forces with Languang College some years ago, and while Kangling College had lost, they had received some benefits. I said, who are they to think that they are so great? Turned out that they are the special enrollment students of the Kangling College who has been doing so badly the last two tournaments. Lu Jinglin smiled smugly, but the dark eyes were flashing with a strange light. For so long, Xiao Lanmei had never paid attention to her, but in front of this white-dressed woman he changed. Xiao Lanmei was acting differently towards her. How could she not be angry? Thinking of this, Lu Jinglin naturally tried to laugh at Baili Hongzhuang. She wants the other party to be unable to lift her head. The faces of Gong Shaoqing and the others changed a few times. Lu Jinglin's words were clearly laughing at them. Baili Hongzhuang sneered. There was an air of indifference and coldness around her as she said, as a cultivator, even if you lose, you cannot be without courage. Those who only know how to flatter those who has power will never go far. Yes, Zhiqing clapped her hands. You are just a dog of Languang College. I really don't know what you are so proud of. You are looking for death. Lu Jinglin's face changed, and she immediately took out her weapon and pointed it at Zhiqing. Zhiqing was not afraid at all. She pulled out her whip and looked at Lu Jinglin without fear. If you have the guts, don't just stand there and swear. I don't have the patience for this. At the same time, Baili Hongzhuang and the others had also taken out their weapons, and the two sides had reached a point where they had no other solution than to fight. If you have the ability, then let's go out and fight. The voice of Baili Hongzhuang was very cold. They had a large number of people. If they fought within the restaurant, they would undoubtedly harm others. It was better to go out and fight it out. Come on then. Lu Jingqi screamed out loud. She had never been this angry in her entire life. She had to see just how strong this woman was. The next moment, everyone left the restaurant together. Before they left, Baili Hongzhuang still remembered to pay for the food. Even when the waiter refused to accept the money, she still paid. The waiter was truly grateful. Baili Hongzhuang had not only solved a big problem for him, she had also avoided damage being done to the restaurant. Such a good person was truly rare. Not only the waiter, but also the other people in the restaurant nodded after seeing this scene. Although I don't know how the strength of the two colleges compare, I still think the students of Kanglan College are much better than the students of Beihai College. It was now known who said this, but everyone agreed with the person. Yes, the students of Kanglan College were far superior to Beihai College's student in terms of appearance and character. The students of Beihai College are a group of people who are just a bit talented. This kind of people were better off with no talent. In the future, if they get stronger, their strength will only be used to harm others. Shui Haoling and the others were walking out of the restaurant, and as they walked they could hear the voices of everyone, and their faces were suddenly extremely ugly to behold. These people were simply calling them worthless. Chapter 645. Special enrollment students fighting hand in hand. As soon as they had walked out of the restaurant, the cultivators from the two colleges instantly began fighting. They had to use their own strength to let the other side understand how they had to pay a huge price for offending them. Lu Jingqi instantly regarded Baili Hongzhuang as her target. However, things were not as she had planned, and before he had time to get in front of Baili Hongzhuang, Zhiqing stopped her directly. Your opponent is me. Seeing Zhiqing, Lu Jingqi's eyes were filled with disgust. This woman was wearing the same clothes as her, making her nauseous. I'm going to beat you into a sorry state. Lu Jingqi yelled angrily. Begin fighting if you have the ability. There's no meaning in saying so much nonsense. Listening to Lu Jingqi's swear words, Zhiqing did not fear her at all. She had long since seen that her arrogance was far greater than her strength. She had been used to the words she said, now to teach her a lesson. Lu Jinglin rushed in front of Baili Hongzhuang. You will regret everything you just did. She refused to let go of this woman who was being noticed by Xiao Lanmei. Baili Hongzhuang originally wanted to fight against Xiao Lanmei. After all, she was the strongest on the team, while he should be the strongest on their team. She had not expected that Lu Jinglin would come finding her on her own. However, she didn't care who it was. The battle broke out in an instant, and everyone had their energies surging as their fists greeted each other. Shockwaves of majestic volatile energy spread through the streets, and the surrounding air seemed to have been compressed in an instant. The surrounding merchants had all left when they saw this scene. If they were hit, no one knew what would happen to them. Baili Hongzhuang directly raised her white hand, and her glass sword appeared in her hand. The movement of her body resembled that of a ghost, and she quickly appeared behind Lu Jinglin. Lu Jinglin's reaction was very fast. She was after all a special enrollment student, and she naturally had a bit of skill. Ding! The two women's swords collided and shot off sparks. Baili Hongzhuang was not holding back. She had had no opponents for a while. Now that she had someone to fight, she also felt happy. However, it was clear that Lu Jinglin was not an opponent for Baili Hongzhuang, because in just this short moment, Lu Jinglin had already been defeated. Lu Jinglin had not thought that Baili Hongzhuang was this strong. It was just a normal fight, but the pressure that Baili Hongzhuang gave off was simply too much for her to handle. Every time she responded, she needed to rely on Yuanli to strengthen herself. On the other hand, Baili Hongzhuang looked as relaxed as if it was nothing. Bang! Baili Hongzhuang made an attack, and Lu Jinglin's body instantly fell down. She had responded quickly, but even so she still fell down. Lu Jinglin, who landed on the ground, could not help but spurt out blood, her face turning pale. Upon seeing this, the cultivators of Baili College glanced at one another. They had just begun fighting, and Lu Jinglin was already seriously injured. The eyes of everyone can't help but land on Baili Hongzhuang. Was this woman with the beautiful appearance really so powerful? Big sister. When Lu Jinglin was injured, Lu Jingqi had no mood to continue fighting. She quickly rushed to Lu Jinglin's side. However, there was a faint glimmer in Zhiqing's eyes. She was not a vegetarian. She was going to teach this annoying Lu Jingqi another lesson. The next moment, Zhiqing's whip flashed out. Her youthful face released a ridiculing laugh as she put away her whip, her arms wrapped around her chest. She was laughing as she watched Lu Jingqi. This kind of woman ought to be taught a lesson, otherwise she would continue to be a nuisance. Lu Jingqi did not notice what happened, as she quickly went to Lu Jinglin's side. Big sister, how are you? She only thought that Baili Hongzhuang was a beautiful shell. She would never have thought that she was so strong. So strong that just a moment of face-to-face fighting had caused her sister to be hurt and vomit out blood. Lu Jinglin stared at her chest. Her white palm fell on her chest, and she could only feel a burning pain that spread through her internal organs. She felt painful and uncomfortable. However, when she saw Lu Jingqi approach her, Lu Jinglin's eyes widened, and she could not help but say, "Jingqi, you cough." Once again, Lu Jinglin spat out blood when she tried to talk. When she finally managed to speak again, a long time had gone by. At the same time, the eyes of all others had gathered on Lu Jingqi. Contrary to what one might expect, she was not wearing any clothes. Had she cut them off? Big sister, you're going to be okay. Lu Jingqi helped Lu Jinglin up gently. Although her personality had always been bad, she was still very concerned about her sister. Suddenly noticing something purple out the corner of her eyes, Lu Jingqi could not help but frown. Her face changed slightly. When she saw the purple clothes that were laying on the ground, she could not help but become a bit doubtful. This purple dress, why was it laying on the ground? Why was it so familiar? Lu Jingqi could not help but stare blankly. When she noticed that Zhiqing was standing a bit away laughing, still dressed in her clothes, her complexion had an abrupt change. She bowed her head, just to find that her outer garments were gone. She was only wearing her inner garments. At the same time, Lu Jinglin's voice could be heard. "Jingqi, your clothes." Ah! A sharp and loud scream appeared in the street as Lu Jingqi jumped up in horror. They were fighting on the street, and their actions were quite loud, attracting many people to come over and watch. Hadn't she been seen by everyone? Lu Jingqi quickly took out a piece of clothes from her Xuanyuan bag and put it on. She then glared angrily at Zhiqing and said, "You are too mean." Zhiqing innocently shrugged her shoulders. "Everything can happen when you fight. You ought to understand this." Lu Jingqi's face was blue, and she knew that Zhiqing was mocking her, but she could say nothing in return. "You wait. I will get my revenge." As the voice fell, Lu Jingqi rushed away from the street. She had already completely lost her face. Why should she continue to stay? When they saw Lu Jingqi leave, Shui Haolang and the others looked at one another. At this point, how could they fight? Shui Haolang quickly came to the side of Lu Jinglin. "We will get revenge at the tournament." Anytime, Baili Hongzhuang's lips curled into an enchanting and ridiculing smile. The battle ended very fast. None of them had expected this. Don't be too proud. The cultivators of Baili College all had ugly expressions and were filled with anger. They were obviously hating Baili Hongzhuang and the others. "You don't have to go like this. We can continue to fight." Zhiqing's face was filled with a smug smile. She was acting as if the special enrollment students of Baili College were unyielding, while in fact the only strength they had was to talk big. Xiao Lanmei glanced deeply at Baili Hongzhuang, but he never spoke. After a moment, he left together with the others from Beihai College. Right, that was so awesome. Zhiqing tuned her body around. Her face was filled with excitement. The expression of Lu Jingqi was simply wonderful. I had not expected it to be so amusing. Huh. Even Zhang Yunfeng could not help but laugh out loud. Zhiqing, you are simply a genius. I don't know how you could think of such a method. It was a flash of inspiration. Must be divine might. Zhiqing raised her eyebrow. Now Lu Jingqi must really hate you, Lu Qingyue said emotionally. Zhiqing just shrugged her shoulders when she heard what she said. She hated me anyway. I was fated to be hated by her. Everyone nodded their heads. It was as Zhiqing was saying, the students of Beihai College hated them, but they did not care about it at all. Even if they had not offended them now, they would have done so when they arrived at Languang College. This was also a chance to explore their strength. Gong Xiaoqing slowly said, the strength of that Xiao Lanmei is not simple at all. He and Xiao Lanmei battled for a short while, and he could feel that the latter had never exerted his full strength. He should be holding back intentionally. Listening to the words of Gong Xiaoqing, the faces of the others turned solemn. Beihai College was one of the 3 colleges. It would naturally not be bad. Even though we fought, I am afraid that it is impossible to see the true depths of our opponents. They hid themselves deeply, just as we kept our cards hidden. Baili Hongzhuang said gently. However, what they have been doing was not only themselves who noticed, also the tutors of the 2 colleges had observed the battle that unfolded in front of them. As long as their mentors were present, they would never get to understand the true depth of the other party. Everyone nodded their heads. What Baili Hongzhuang said made sense. You were right, but now we have a better understanding of the team from Beihai College. That is a good result, even though we did not get to finish eating. Zhang Yunfeng walked beside Zhiqing and gave her a thumbs up. Zhiqing, what you did before really made me happy, Zhiqing chuckled and noted. That Lu Jingqi was so arrogant in front of us. Let's see if she can be proud in front of me next time. Everyone must be tired. Let us find an inn to rest at. Dongfang, you suggested. Good idea. The crowd walked down the street before they found an inn where they entered. Dear guests, would you like to rest in our inn? The shopkeeper asked with a smile on his face. They were a border city, so although business was always booming, he had not expected to get 2 big groups of guests in one day. This way, their inn could be filled completely. Dongfang nodded his head. Yes. Do you have 8 rooms available? There is. The shopkeeper nodded his head again and again. There is exactly 8 rooms left. I will bring you to them. Smiles emerged on their faces. Finally, they could take a good rest. However, just as Baili Hongzhuang and the others were preparing to go upstairs, a figure appeared on the 2nd floor. The figure looked like it had seen Ghostz when it noticed Baili Hongzhuang, and it quickly said, How come you are here? The faces of Baili Hongzhuang and the others was also unnatural. Enemies truly met on a narrow road. That phrase was truly accurate. They had only just finished their fight with Beihai College, and now they met them again. This was too coincidental, wasn't it? Is your eyes working? We are obviously at the inn to rest. Who would have known you were here? Zhiqing sneered. I see. You deliberately picked our inn to stay in. Lu Jingqi's face was blue. From she was small, and until now, she had never been as humiliated as she was today, and now Zhiqing and the others had followed them. Wasn't this the same as deliberately embarrassing her? You think too much. We aren't interested in you. Zhiqing looked at Lu Jingqi with disdain. This Lu Jingqi is really not too smart. We have rented this place. Go somewhere else to rest. While Lu Jingqi and Zhiqing were talking, Xiao Lanmei and the others also came out from their rooms. As they saw Baili Hongzhuang and the others, their faces changed slightly. What was the situation? The shopkeeper did not tell us you had rented the entire place. If you are unwilling to live with us, you can move out directly. Zhang Yunfeng said coldly. The cold face of Gong Xiaoqing was also showing some impatience. Take us to the rooms. The students of Beihai College were masters at causing trouble, but but he had no intention of continuing to fight with them right now. No matter how much they argue, there is no point. It is better to go back and rest, and then wait until Languang College. It will not be too late to move against them then. The shopkeeper's face was slightly awkward. He thought he was lucky to get 2 big groups of customers today. Never would he have thought that they were fighting. Yes, the shopkeeper immediately walked away, closely followed by Baili, Hongzhuang, and the others. However, before he got far, Lu Jingqi blocked the road of the shopkeeper. I told you we have booked this in today. You can go elsewhere. Shui Haoling even took out a purse and placed it in the hands of the shopkeeper. Do you understand? We have booked this in. You drive them out. Seeing the situation, the shopkeeper was also in a dilemma. Dear guests, you never mentioned this before. It is a problem to do so now. It is obvious that neither of these 2 teams are ordinary people. If he accidentally offended someone, it would be him who is unfortunate. Shui Haolang, do you only know this one trick? Bai Junyu sneered. This guy also tried to use money on the waiter in the restaurant. Does he have no other ways? Yes, Shui Haolang, you are also a practitioner of the Beihai College, but you only know how to make it difficult for the shopkeeper and the waiter. Aren't you ashamed? When the words came out, Shui Haolang's face turned blue-green. It was true that the 2 times they had met, he had acted like this both times. I am rich. What can you do about it? Shui Haolang directly said with a domineering voice filled with anger. Money in this world was extremely important. In this kind of situation, it was normal to fight with money. Otherwise, how should they fight? Lu Jingqi's face was also smiling after hearing Shui Haolang's words. This was domineering, and they were rich. There was a bit of impatience in the eyes of Languang. There was no reason to waste time on fighting with each others, and he couldn't help but say, it's just one night, even if they live in the same inn. So what? From the previous restaurant, this was the nearest inn. Because of this, he did not think that the Kangling College special enrollment students had followed them intentionally. Also, their mentors are close, so there should be no problems. However, Lu Jingqi was not agreeing. How can we? This time they have fought us. If we give way, where will the face of Beihai College go? There is some dissatisfaction in the heart of Lu Jingqi. She felt that Languang was obsessed with Baili Hongzhuang, and because of this he would allow them to stay in the inn. Because of this, Baili Hongzhuang could not be allowed to stay. Shui Haolang, drive them out. Hearing what Lu Jingqi said, Languang looked at her indifferently. He was too lazy to deal with it, and he directly returned to his room. Obviously, he did not plan on wasting any time on this matter. Shui Haolang nodded, and another purse appeared in his hand. I will pay double. Just drive them out. The shopkeeper looked at Shui Haolang and Baili Hongzhuang in a distressed way. This kind of situation was really making it impossible for him to decide. If he had known of this before, he would rather have done no business today and not seen the situation happening. You should not be too overbearing. This is just a small business with ordinary people. Don't be too much. Shui Haolang seemed to have not heard what he said and directly declared, I'll pay triple. Zhiqing and the others looked at Shui Haolang's behavior as a rich young master and were speechless. Was he trying to kill them with money? Hongzhuang, do we change the inn? Zhang Yinfeng could not help but ask. Shui Haolang and the Oths are stuck there. It would be hard for them to enter any time soon, and staying here is just causing trouble for the shopkeeper. Listening to Zhang Yinfeng's words, the expressions of Su Haolang and Lu Jingqi showed smugness. They just wanted to let the other side know that they could be forced into a retreat. Now, they lost at the restaurant. They could turn it around at the inn. The faces of Bai Junyu and the others were not looking too good. When they encountered a person with such a rich boy attitude, they could only be speechless. In fact, all of them were rich, but they were not wasteful. Also, if they were going to compete with Shui Haolang in money, it would never end, and they would take out money constantly. However, then Baili Hongzhuang did something that shocked them all. A purse appeared in her hands, and she said casually, Shopkeeper, we are buying this in. When the words came out, Everyone looked at Baili Hongzhuang in shock. Zhiqing and the others had hard to describe expressions on their faces that hardly concealed their horror. Too domineering. This is really being domineering. What was Shui Haoling doing before? Baili Hongzhuang directly bought the entire inn. Lu Qingyue, Dongfang Yu, and Gong Shaoqing looked at one another. In fact, when they had first gone to the Luoyan mountain range, they had already seen this side of Baili Hongzhuang. Returning qi pills were a precious remedy, but Baili Hongzhuang had so many of them. In comparison, Shui Haoling's current savings were truly nothing. Buying this inn was nothing. Even if she wanted to buy several inns, it'd be nothing. Baili Hongzhuang directly bought the inn, only for the purpose of shutting them up. Shui Haoling and Lu Jingqi were also stunned. They did not expect that Baili Hongzhuang would make such a move. This woman, she shouldn't be that crazy. They just wanted to stay here for one night, but she actually bought the inn. As a result, those who were screaming before were suddenly quiet. How could this be comfortable? Although Shui Haoling had money to directly buy the inn, it was too wasteful. Suddenly, Shui Haoling's gaze landed on the purse that the shopkeeper was holding. The purse was so small, it could only contain a few gold coins. Wasn't it a joke to buy an inn with such a small purse? This was the Qing Dynasty, and this was Languang town as a border town. There were many trades and merchants here every day. The price of this inn ought to be even more expensive than normal inns. If you want to buy an inn for a few gold coins, it is impossible. With that little money, you want to buy an inn? It is impossible, don't joke. Shui Haoling sneered. Hearing the words, Lu Jingqi's gaze also landed on the purse, and she could not help but laugh. She's a country bumpkin. To buy an inn with that few gold coins, she is a joke. Baili Hongzhuang's next words stunned Lu Jingqi. Before actually understanding the situation, I advise you to not be too proud. Otherwise, the joke will be you. Compared to the customers of the Beihai College, the students from Kanglan College are calm. They have absolute trust in Baili Hongzhuang. They already understood her personality. It would be impossible to make such a mistake. Shopkeeper, open and see. Baili Hongzhuang smiled faintly. The shopkeeper looked worriedly at Baili Hongzhuang. Although there is a contradiction between the two teams, Baili Hongzhuang has left a good impression on him. After all, they did not embarrass themselves or make troubles, so he did not want her to become a joke. However, as he opened the purse, a bit of purple could be seen, and the worry in his eyes disappeared in an instant. Purple gold coins. The shopkeeper smiled. Shui Haoling and Lu Jingqi were dumbfounded. They would never have guessed that the purse that Baili Hongzhuang handed over contained purple gold coins. No wonder it looked small. It turned out to be so amazing. During this time, the expressions of both of them turned very ugly. Looking back at what they had just said, this was a slap to their faces. The more proud they were before, the more embarrassed they were now. Haha, you too. Ended up being you who were the joke. Zhiqing naturally did not mind taunting them. This kind of people deserved it. Lu Jingqi was hopping mad. This Zhiqing made her more and more unhappy. But so far she had never gained the upper hand. It was truly driving her mad. What about me? Zhiqing shook her head. So unfortunate to be the subject of her hate. Now we own this inn, you can go. You have yet to buy it. The shopkeeper hasn't said he'll sell it. Lu Jingqi looked at the shopkeeper. Previously, the shopkeeper was embarrassed and stuck between them. It was not sure that he would sell the inn now. At this time, Baili Hongzhuang said a few things to the shopkeeper, and once again everyone turned stunned. Shopkeeper, I only want to buy this inn for a day. Tomorrow it will once again be yours. At this time, the cultivators from Beihai College were petrified. So much money was simply too much to buy this inn normally, but now it is only to buy the inn for a day. Can't you be less wasteful? Even if you have money, don't you get this point? This was simply to make life hard for them. Shui Haoling was also unable to speak at this moment. How could he compare? Although he was very lavish every day, but this kind of money could be used to buy cultivation resources. So if he returned home and his old man knew how he had spent his money, Would he not be killed by his old man? The shopkeeper was no longer hesitant. He quickly said, "Girl, this inn is yours today. I will tell them to pack up immediately." The next moment, the shopkeeper no longer observed the expressions of Xue Haoling and the others. He directly gave back the money he had gained from Xue Haoling, and they had no other option than to go and pack up their things. In this regard, Lu Jingqi could say nothing. When faced with such a good deal, only idiots would not take it. Baili Hongzhuang and the others slowly went forward, no longer looking at Lu Jingqi and the others. Winners and losers had already been determined. Zhiqing sneered at Lu Jingqi. Go on. If it wasn't because of Lu Jingqi seeking trouble, they would be able to stay here now, but they had to go the hard way. However, Zhiqing did not need Baili Hongzhuang to make a move. They had been driven out, and this was a real shame for them. After walking towards their rooms, Bai Junyu's face was still unable to hide his emotions. Hongzhuang is simply too domineering. Zhiqing raised her eyebrow. Hongzhuang has always been domineering, haha. But using this much money, isn't it too wasteful? Lu Qingyue's eyebrows were slightly wrinkled and felt it was a pity and a waste. Hearing this, everyone looked at Baili Hongzhuang. This time it was truly refreshing for them. However, the one to suffer the biggest loss was Baili Hongzhuang. Seeing everyone's eyes, she could not help but wave her hand. Don't worry, this is really nothing. Although she spent money, she also made a fortune. Baili Hongzhuang returned to her room, and Little Black and Little White smugly appeared in front of her. They shook their claws and offered up the treasure they had found. "Master, do we get a reward?" Seeing Little White and Little Black waving their claws, Baili Hongzhuang saw 2 Qingquan bags. One belonged to Xue Haoling, the other belonged to Lu Jingqi. Baili Hongzhuang smiled. "I'll prepare a big meal for you. Eat all you want. Master is the best." The faces of Little Black and Little White were filled with excitement. These 2 idiots, Xue Haoling and Lu Jingqi, were so angry that they never noticed that their Qingquan bags had disappeared. Later on, they would become hopping mad. Ha! You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.